What's up, everyone? Thank you for joining me for episode 13 of the Riff Tacos podcast. My name is Paul Misko. Couple things real quick before we get started. Riff Tacos now has its own official Instagram. So if you're following me, awesome. And thank you very much. But please go follow the show as well. It is just at Riff Tacos on Instagram. I also launched the email list today. So you can sign up for that for free, get new episode alerts, updates about what I'm up to and plans for the podcast, and be the first to know about merch drops and any cool happenings. So I would appreciate that very much. I've been waiting for this episode since I started the podcast. Joining me tonight is one of my first friends ever in the world, one of my best friends ever in the world. We met when we were probably 5 or 6 years old, and he can correct me because he has an insane memory for everything. But we grew up together. We went to school together. We played in some of our first bands together. And then he left me in, I think, 2001 or 2002 to join from a Second Story Window. And I was pretty butthurt. Not really. I was stoked for him. But we went our separate ways musically. And just a few short years later, the dudes would give me a call and ask me to join the band. And everything would kind of come full circle for us in 2006. And since that has happened again with us breaking up in 2008 and then reuniting 15 years later again in 2023. He's my favorite drummer. He makes one hell of a goddamn brisket. I shit you not. Some of the best barbecue I've ever had. And so I'm stoked to talk to him about that and his plans to open his own joint and get started. This is Riff Tacos with Nick Huffman. Mr. Nick Huffman.
Hey, buddy.
Thank you for doing this, brother. I've been looking forward to this one for a long time.
Thank you for having me. This is my big break.
Your big break? I don't know about that, but we're going to have a good time.
No, man, I've genuinely been a fan. I've watched or listened to every single one. This has been awesome.
Well, thank you very much for that.
I'm proud of you.
I know it's many hours of hearing my voice when you already have to see me twice a week, and
it's the only bad part.
But I was thinking before we started, when like what to say about our, like, in my intro about like our whole life since we've known each other. We were 5 or 6 years old when we met, and then we started in our first bands together, and we went our separate ways, and then ended up full circle, me joining the band in 2006. And then here we are after breaking up in 2008, full circle again, 2023, reunion show, and now writing new music and doing more shows this year. So it's freaking crazy, honestly.
I couldn't agree more. My relationships with people as it relates to playing music, like there isn't one that goes farther back.
Yeah.
Like, it was you and Brady and I. That was the first time that I ever played with other people at all. And it was like, we were all 10, 11 years old getting our first instruments and just finally bringing them over to like my mom's basement, probably where we practice today.
Yeah, same exact place. I remember we used to be in that main room when you come down the stairs. And your drums were set up facing the stairs. And then Brady was on the right. I was on the left. He had that BC Rich guitar tuned to A because of Korn. And I was like, oh, shit, here we go. I don't even remember what I was playing then. I might have still had my shitty red Cort.
Yeah, you started off with your Cort, and then you got a weird body shape Ibanez 7-string.
Oh, yeah.
It was like that, like, dark gray, not exactly like an SG shape, but like I don't think I've seen that shape anywhere else.
Did it have the like?
It was like the Taproot dude's guitar, wasn't it?
Something
not like his model, but
I thought he played 6-string, but yeah, it was almost like a Les Paul body or something. I don't know. But and then eventually, when I joined Robinson, I didn't have a 6-string, so I just took one off there. I was like, all right, I'll just pretend it's a 6-string.
Right.
But that first band, you guys had already kind of played together a little bit. And it was called Harsh, right?
I mean, we didn't do anything really. Not, like we were 12, 13-year-olds. I mean, Brady and I went from whatever Nirvana stuff we knew we would play, and you were the next friend that ever, took up wanting to be in a band and played an instrument that wasn't the like school band options and went like be in a band, kind of picked up a guitar. But I mean, none of that was really ever. I think the biggest thing we ever did was I wrote the band name on my boombox. That was like our.
Yeah.
I think that was when we peaked. That was like the most exposure we ever got.
Right. And so when you're like Nirvana-ish, or was it a cover band with Youth Gone Wild, right?
Oh, the punk thing with Jamie.
Yeah. Was Brady in that too, or who else was in that?
He eventually was, yeah. Shout out to Demas.
Yeah, Jamie Papademos.
Uh-huh. He plays music to this day, and he plays at Westside often. We haven't seen each other. We haven't seen each other in ages, but he's doing great. It was him and another kid named Sean, and Sean played bass, and Jamie was at 12 years old, like there wasn't a Ramones or Green Day song he did not know front to back.
Oh, wow. I don't remember him for some reason.
And he was the first. Jamie?
Yeah. No. Oh, you're talking about Jamie. I thought you were talking about Sean.
No, yeah. Sean. So do you remember the very first show I ever played, that Grange Hall show we did in, I think that was like 7th grade, that would have been?
I remember you guys playing like a talent show in the school, but I don't know if I remember that one.
So, yeah, the year before we played at the middle school, we played twice at the middle school. We did like just a regular dance in the middle of the year, and then they asked us if we would play as the last day of school, 8th grade, like dance.
Yeah.
That second half of the day where we're just stuffed in the gym and it's, 90s pop music, much to, the dismay of 90% of our grade. That was what they decided to do. And yeah, dude, it's crazy looking back at just how long a few of those shows were. One of the times we played at the middle school, we played a set that was like, I want to say close to between 15 to like 20 songs.
Wow. If you're a touring musician, you know how important it is to have reliable merchandise that represents your brand and keeps fans coming back for more. That's where Gorilla Joe Printing comes in. They specialize in high-quality printing and custom merchandise made to make your fans feel like they are part of the experience. From t-shirts to patches and any unique memorabilia in between. Gorilla Joe Printing also helps forecast your inventory, whether you're on or off the road, so you never run out of stock or end up with too much. They even help bands manage their e-commerce stores, keeping your merch business running smoothly 24/7 so you can focus on what you do best, performing. For more info, check out GorillaJoePrinting.com.
But it was like
really long for any band,
unless
you're Metallica.
It was, I mean, they were all like 2.5-minute songs, but it was like Green Day, Offspring, Nirvana, a lot of Ramones, and I think at most we had like 3 of our own songs, 3 or 4. But yeah, that was the first band that I was ever in. That first show, I think, gosh, I was like 12 or 13.
Yeah. I thought that was beforehand because I was like, I knew he did one thing, but I didn't know how much you counted it because it was kind of a cover band.
Yeah. We would practice like 5 hours every Saturday. It would just be like we'd get dropped off at Jamie's and we'd be in the basement all day long just playing. It was just all we wanted to do. And
so fun.
Yeah, that kid Sean played the very first show we ever did. We like rented the Grange Hall, that place that we used to have middle school dances at. And then shortly after, Brady, who was playing guitar, got like a Squier 4-string bass, and Sean lived out of town, I think, but yeah. And then it was Brady and Jamie and I, and that lasted until that was the last thing we did, was that last day of 8th grade. And then that summer was when you and Brady and I started jamming together more so.
Right.
And everybody's styles were going in different directions. We had,
especially as teenagers, you start to hear things because you don't know really who you are yet. And
I remember Jamie was like, "No!" The first time he saw me at school with a Korn t-shirt on.
You're like, "Oh, this ain't gonna work then."
Well, we were all so clicked up as little kids in the 90s when it was there was the Korn group, and then there was the remnants of grunge type guys, and that was very much so where I was up until 98.
Yeah.
I saw Korn footage on MTV. It was that Family Values 98 pro shot thing.
Yeah.
And I saw it on MTV, and that was always what made me fall in love with the band, would be something I would see of them live.
Right.
And that sound, I remember the first time hearing it, that sounded like the future. It sounded like future music. Got the Life was on the radio, and I was like, I have never heard anything like that's guitars.
Yeah.
I didn't have any frame of reference for it.
It was the first thing that really blew my mind. Because it had horror movie sounds. And then Got the Life had that disco beat, they always talk about. They were afraid that people were going to hate it, but then it was so heavy. And then Jonathan were whatever the hell he's doing. I've never heard anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm getting some movement on your mic there. If you could watch on your collar, I can cut this out, but it's like rubbing on your shirt as you.
It is.
Yeah. So if you could keep it off there anyway.
I'll try.
That's better. But yeah, so Korn was definitely a huge one for all of us, Brady included. And I think when we started our band, or when we were playing in Harsh, the idea was to kind of go that direction, and Slipknot hadn't really taken over our brains yet.
Mm-hmm. It was one more year away.
Yeah. And then we go into Hot Topic, up to the thing with had the CDs in it with the headphones, put that on, hear the self-titled, and just boom, hearing all 3 drummers at once and the masks. I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? And I kind of opened the door the rest of the way.
Yeah, it didn't make sense, but something immediately clicked where I was like, you can do the stuff you do with your hands with your feet.
Yeah.
That's his feet. My brain exploded, and I was like, oh. And
yeah, especially for you, that's a huge one.
Yeah,
we never heard old school death metal, or even though there was other fast heavy shit.
No.
Obviously Metallica and Slayer, but it's different.
Yeah, that was my introduction to music. The Korn into Slipknot thing. Years prior to that, I had already had my moment where I realized that I really loved music, and that was
I was going to ask you that because you were a big important part of mine.
I didn't know that until you started this podcast, and I was like, what?
Dude, I forgot that until I started the podcast, because you start thinking about things to talk about and how you got started, and I was like, holy shit, this memory just popped in my head of you playing that guitar on my neighbor's porch. So I was like, when Nick comes on, I need to know his moment.
Crazy. So I liked Metallica. I remembered hearing Enter Sandman on the radio in the car with my dad, and not knowing what it was, but that it sounded bigger than anything I'd ever heard. And went to the mall, and whichever place was the CD music store at the time, I literally like mouthed the main riff to the guy that worked there. I was like, I'm trying to find the song with the na 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 na, and he like, I got like 3 notes out, and he was like, Metallica Black Album over here, and that turned out to be like one of the best first albums for a kid that wants to learn an instrument, like especially like drums.
Yeah.
Because as much as the, you know, like metal purists like turned their back at that point because like the thrashy stuff was gone and it got very, you know, backbeat heavy and the drums were simplified.
Yeah.
For me as a 11-year-old, it was perfect to learn to.
Yeah. I mean, it's so catchy. There's a reason it's their most popular album still.
I learned how to play along to every single song on that. And then for like a few months there, it was when Brady and I would have sleepovers, it was when he would come to my house, it was only Metallica. And then when I would go to his house, it was like Nirvana.
Right.
And his dad had Nirvana Live Tonight sold out, this VHS tape of...
Oh, no shit. I didn't know his dad was in Nirvana.
Yeah, that's where the original, like the initial guitars that were at Brady's house. Those were Mike's. So we put this VHS tape in, and that to me, even though I had already been listening to music, that to me was what totally set my life like in a very specific direction, because it showed them playing in small packed clubs on tiny shitty stages, and then in the same song, like it would come out of the chorus and then it would edit to them playing the next verse of that song but headlining the Reading Festival.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And it would go back and forth, stuff like that. So like I got this comprehension of just like how far things can go, but what I was obsessed with was the sweaty, tiny places in that video. Yeah. The packed places where people were falling over each other.
Right. And
I just knew it was something that I wanted to be a part of somehow, but I was still too young. Right. And we, not long after, so like Brady and I were obsessed with just grunge, the whole grunge thing, even though it was kind of the year after it died when Kurt died. It was like 95. We were obsessed, and it was like he was already gone.
I remember coming over there, and so you guys were into it before he died.
Barely.
Yeah,
I think
I remember coming over there, and it just happened, and you guys were bummed, and I was like, I'm supposed to be bummed about something, but I don't really understand.
So I think, yeah, Brady beat me to it by a little bit. He, I believe, has a memory of his dad having him watch Nirvana Unplugged when it premiered. It was like a big deal, and people wanted to see it. And he was dead soon after that.
Yeah, and we were 10 at the time.
Yeah, that was 94. So we turned 10 later that year. So like I had just missed it, but it was still the biggest thing in the world. Yeah. And there was a VHS tapes played a big part in my falling in love with music. The next one that was super important to me was it was called Hype, HYPE, and it was a documentary all about the media like consuming Seattle when like Alice in Chains, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, everybody broke all at once. And that 2-hour documentary is just like, you would love it if you watched it now. It is just crammed clubs in the era that like had to be the best era to play music in, you know, the old fuddy-duddy shit we say where it's like, you know, not a cell phone in sight, just people living there. But like, it was just...
It's true, though.
Yeah, it was people just loving the fact that there was live music being played
Mhm.
and it just creating this massive community. And that was what I wanted, was what I saw there. It wasn't anything that had to do with big stages or the stuff that you can't relate to. It was like, these people are just doing this.
Mhm.
And it would interview these bands, and they were all like, everyday dudes that weren't making money. They were doing it because they wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And the fact that we've come to this full circle point of reuniting and making new music and playing the shows that we want to play, like, it's kind of that perfect thing again, where we're doing it because we want. It's like rattling. We're doing it because we want to be doing it, not
Yes.
because it's turned into, what we have to do.
Yeah, there's no pressure. There's no deadlines. There's no one
Right.
asking us to do anything or pay any money back. It's just whatever we want to do when we want to do it, which is very freeing.
Yeah, like art for art's sake. And I feel like that's kind of the best place to be. I wish things were different in terms of, I don't love the social media side of it and the needing to constantly like say, hey, don't forget about us kind of stuff. Like I wish that wasn't a thing.
Yeah, it's gone way beyond MySpace. Like that seemed like it worked really well, and that's why it was so popular. But like now it's just a constant barrage of reels and stories and content that's 30 seconds or less. And if you do anything longer than that, people swipe. It is really annoying. And we had to dive in first to it, or dive in head first to it, though, I guess. So hey, we're back.
I'm thankful for the era that we existed in.
Yes.
The largely kind of lost era where, if somebody had a phone that could film, it was so bad that there was no point in even watching it.
Mm-hmm.
Like this whole scene in this whole like batch of bands kind of happened off the radar, minus the whole tag of like MySpace or whatever. And I feel like it was the very last of that.
Yeah, it pretty much was. Like I remember when I first went on tour, I brought disposable cameras, not because it was a hipster thing to do. It was because like I was poor and I didn't have enough money for a digital camera, but that was normal still. That's how old like we are.
Those photos that I was like spamming you guys with the other day, that was what I used to get too. I found my like little personal box of the first like 5 tours we did, it became a tradition where on the first day of tour I stole a disposable camera from a gas station.
I remember that.
I would just cleverly pocket a disposable camera and just take a picture once every day maybe. And by the time the tour was over and I would drop it off, like, you have no idea what pictures you took.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you can't look at it. That's great.
And it'd be like 1 hour photo and drop it off, go do God knows what, come back in an hour. And then like these memories were hitting you for the first time.
Yeah.
And rather than just like immediately taking photos and then just judging them immediately, like there was no such thing as bad pictures back then. You loved them all, even though they were just, good stuff.
Yeah. I did get that digital camera, thankfully, because I would have lost all of my like real pictures, because like I have some of the Robinson stuff and I just have folders and all my old hard drive. I named it per tour since I joined the band. Like the first,
good.
I was going to say the first tour when I joined was like, we did like one small show in Lemoyne, Pennsylvania. That was my like warm up thing. Then we did Saints and Sinners, which was the first like real show. And
I thought this whole time, my memory was that your first show was Saints and Sinners. We played one first.
We might have, but see, I only remember it because that it's labeled Lemoyne, PA, and like our old girlfriends are there. Like, and I was like, oh my God, this like memory was gone. It was the first time we used the boxes and the lights that we built. And it's this little floor show. So I think that was kind of a warm. I could be wrong though. It might have been after Saints and Sinners.
You have to be wrong. You have to be. Here's why. When we did that Saints and Sinners, which was your first show, we found out during that we were going to then later, because I remember we watched Through the Eyes of the Dead like destroy the main stage. And we found out later that like we were going to do a tour with them.
Right.
And if memory serves me correctly, we built those for that tour.
Okay, so then maybe that was a one-off before that tour.
Yeah, because
definitely wasn't with them. It was just a little tiny floor show.
Like what you and the gentleman from Norma Jean, I can't remember his first name.
Jake.
What you guys had talked about, it was because of a tour with Darkest Hour, and Slybomb told me the exact same shit. This is a concert. Yeah. This is not a show. This is a concert. Even when we were playing in the back of a, restaurant that got rented for the day, they went through the trouble of the banners and the can lights and everything, and it sold us on that. So we came straight home from that tour, and we're like, let's elevate our show a little bit. We're getting way out of order and like the scheme of the career of the band, but
it's all right. We can go wherever.
Well, no, I mean, we can totally just pick up with when you joined, and that was the biggest no-brainer of all time. That was an instantly unanimous call, Paul.
Yeah,
and it's definitely true that we were like, we can't ask him to leave his band because they're a proper band that has a record and they're on tour, but can he at least do this one tour that we have booked while we figure out something more permanent? But all of us, you and this immediately said yes, and all of us were like, man, I hope this works out to where, he really can do both bands.
Yeah, and so did I. I wanted to make it clear to them too, because like when Joe called me, he was like, "We don't want to steal you. We don't want to piss anyone off, because we're all friends." And I was like, "Understood," but we have nothing booked then, so hell yeah, I'll do it. That'll be fun. And then like it was never going to be possible with the amount of touring both bands wanted to do, and so I think I made the right decision. It was tough because I was very excited to do the next Robinson record.
Right.
And I would love to hear what would have came of that. But I also we wouldn't have got to go to Europe together and do conversations, go to More Sound.
Yeah.
That was my first experience in like a real studio, going where someone was paying for you to stay here for a month and live like a musician and wake up every day and just go downstairs and play guitar or watch Nick play drums. I was like, this is like, I don't even care if I get paid for this. This is like all I want to do forever.
100%.
Yeah. But I was going to touch on, before we go forward, going backward. So we had our first band together, Harsh, with Brady. And then it turned into Syndrome with our friend, shout out Chris Straub, one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life. I haven't seen him since God knows when, right after high school, but I miss him and would love to hang out with him. But he was our singer. And then our friend Scott joined on bass, who didn't even know how to play bass at all.
Yeah, he played bass for the pictures we took. He recorded bass for the disposable camera pictures we took. Yeah. Yeah.
And I still have those. If I can dig those up, I think they're in one of my mom's albums of us like in our UFO pants and Slipknot shirts and colored hair.
Dude, I tried to find him online. He is a ghost.
Scott?
Online. Yeah, he doesn't exist.
Yeah.
That's
weird by now. You see, someone usually has something, an old Facebook
granted, I obviously haven't looked everywhere because I don't have a Twitter. I've never, or TikTok. I looked like Instagram and Facebook and nothing. I'd love to see him, but he's somebody that I'm pretty sure I haven't seen since high school, since graduation.
Yeah, me either.
But he was an influence on me musically. He had such cool taste in music when we were very much in just the whole world was Nirvana and Green Day. He was into darker things that really like caught my attention. He was obsessed with Nine Inch Nails.
I was gonna say, was it Nine Inch Nails or Tool that he loved? I remember it was one of those.
He was into the cooler, darker shit like that. He was into Nine Inch Nails, Tool, Manson, Tori Amos, which somehow like kind of worked in that as like an artist in that genre, even though it couldn't be any less like it.
Right.
Yeah, he had like the collection of every Nine Inch Nails release because he was putting them out and numbering them, even if it was like a mini single that had like 2 tracks on it. Nothing Records was doing this thing called like Halo 1, and then the next thing would be Halo 2, Halo 3, and he had this like of a shitload of them even way back then, and I was like, this dark stuff is awesome too. Like, I just feel that we kind of hit the lottery in terms of what era we became like teens in.
Yeah.
And the way, for lack of a better term, the way pop culture was.
Yeah.
Then like it grew an edge that prior generations did not have. What they thought was their edge really is very tame. And we had this like beautiful moment in the mid 90s where, you know, like South Park, you know, like came into the world, and all of a sudden there was like edge, which it doesn't seem edgy now, the beginning of it, but like swearing and
it was then for a cartoon. That was the most insane thing. Yeah,
the
WWE, like everything. Yeah, the 90s, the Suck It, the DX, and then like all the music. It was just an incredible time to be a teenager being influenced by all that stuff, and then going, all right, how do we contribute to this in our way? Also, Jackass, like everything was just insane.
Yeah, I remember thinking the edgiest thing I could have ever done was like that first time I wore a Who Killed Kenny t-shirt to middle school. Yeah. And I was like, oh man, I'm into the edgy stuff. Watch out for me.
Look out, everybody.
I don't know. I've been very nostalgic lately with that time period and the unique music that was coming out then. And
oh yeah, we couldn't get enough of it. It was like every week there was a new band we found out about, and they were all amazing. Yeah. And like, obviously when you're older, like I would say like I don't feel like that today, but I'm sure if I was young, it would be the same thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was
but it was like, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking like, in terms of the way things are now, it was so much less bands, but we were kind of, you know, it was what mainstream kind of fed us as what heavy music was. Like you've touched on in other episodes, we didn't have older siblings that were already into underground music and death metal that could like expose us to like the real.
No one was showing me Napalm Death and like Cannibal Corpse. And
so like this whole generation that really did kind of get into heavy music through the most mainstream things, like a Metallica to Korn to Slipknot kind of thing. Yeah. We didn't have that social media and internet thing where you found what's underneath the popular stuff. It was
just whatever broke through and was on MTV or made it into the store.
Right. You either listened to, you know, 90s hip hop and R&B, or you were into boy bands and Backstreet Boys, or if you were one of the really cool kids, you liked Korn and Limp Bizkit.
That's goddamn right.
And thank God for that, I guess.
Yeah, I posted that reel is on YouTube. It took off, and I woke up to like just emails of all the notifications, just of comments, and like how mad everyone was. And I was
That
like,
is not real heavy.
and I was like, I knew that was going to happen, and that's part of the reason I posted it. But it wasn't like I just posted something just for that, because it is also true because of the things you're saying that like, yes, there was other bands that were heavier, and yes, they were influenced by Sepultura and Mr. Bungle and like whoever else came before, but they were the first band to be that huge, and that record specifically put them in the stratosphere with that song, competing and defeating NSYNC and Britney Spears on TRL every single week. And it was like the first band anyone had ever heard outside of this underground world that tuned their guitars to A, were playing that heavy, and like whatever the hell Jonathan Davis was doing. So that changed the world for a lot of people who weren't in that underground. And to this day, people are still playing Korn-inspired riffs, whether they know it or not. And that was the point of that post. Knowing I'm not going to explain all that, but it's going to make people mad, and that's fine. It's funny, but
no, I mean, it's so cool that era and that genre, which at the time, you know, people quickly thumbed their nose at as being this, you know, not serious, you know, thing. How they say, you know, you're never appreciated in your time, even though they were massive. When you think about it, it's like, I mean, bands are getting enormous again, but that was kind of the last moment of the true, like, traditional rock star of arenas and private jets, and, you know.
And here's $2 million to go make a music video, and
and your albums were, like, sold.
Oh,
it was just such a good time. It really was.
It was. And like Limp Bizkit is coming back so huge again. Like, they're killing it. And the younger generation, I saw like video where Fred is like, how many of y'all have ever seen us before? And like no one raised their hand. He was like, okay.
Right. They're finding a whole new audience again. It's like, that's what I mean. These bands are like, the way I felt of kind of being like, man, I wish I would have been 5 years older to where I would have been, you know, like, me into music and playing drums while grunge was happening. There are kids now that like look at that new metal explosion and go, God damn it, I wish I was around then.
I feel lucky I was around for something. One of the last true, like you said, last true eras of like rock stars, and like before Napster and everything. And then it's like almost impossible to make a living as a musician unless you're fucking Posty or Taylor Swift or.
So this is a good segue, because all of that, the arenas and stadiums and, you know, the Korn level fame seems so out of my comprehension and so out of touch that one of the first things, again, a VHS tape, one of the first things that kind of re-sparked that thing that I felt from that hype VHS I talked about in the grunge era was the first time seeing one of the old Hellfest VHS tapes of a dozen gritty, broke bands playing on, like, you know, bad gear in a small room, but the few hundred kids shoulder to shoulder packed into that room are just exploding with energy. And that, like, that was something I could relate to. That looked within grasp. At that young age of like, how is this not, like, I remember seeing stuff like that and going, how's this not good enough? I would be, like, that to me was the pinnacle of, like, if I could play a Hellfest with a band someday, like a room that rowdy, that's like, that knows the music, oh my God. It was the first time I saw the crowd as a part of the show, of like getting on the stage and everybody grabbing a microphone, and like the Bane shit that still happens every time they play to this day. Like,
that was all completely foreign to us, because we're looking at bands that are playing huge stages or Ozfest or, you know, whatever.
I was like, we're not going to be one of them. But when I started seeing that stuff, I was like, I can do that.
It did seem like it was just this super cool underground thing that we wanted to like be accepted in and become a part of, and learning from Jeremy and Greg.
Yeah. I mean, that was all I really wanted. I wish I still had it, but when the Not One Word EP came out, the day it came out in stores, my dad, he was super thoughtful with certain things. The day it came out in stores, I was so happy. I went and, found one of them. There was, very few in our town, but got my hands on one. And he handed me a framed piece of homework of mine that I did in like 7th grade. And it was a career narrative. It's like what your goal is, what you want to be in the future. And I had written something to the effect of, I don't need to be rich. I don't need to be famous. I just want to see the day where all I have to do for my job is play and write music. And I would love to see the day where I can walk into the same store I bought all my favorite albums at and buy my own album.
Right.
And
That's
my dad handed me that framed.
Holy shit.
And I just like try not to cry now, but yeah, like it was a moment.
Wow. I never knew that. If you told me that, I completely forgot. That is amazing.
Yeah, I wrote it in like 7th grade, and it was like to a T, because we had been gone that whole summer, it had been a little over a year before that came out properly. Yeah. But and it was this weird thing where the whole time he was kind of hypercritical of like, sooner or later this tree's got to bear fruit, or you need to pack it up, because
yeah.
Eventually
we said the same thing.
Right, he was right. We'd leave for. I'd come back after 6 weeks, and it took like 8 times of doing that before I came home with like $300.
Yep.
And I was just like, I am rich.
Yep.
Because I was like, who cares? It's only $300. We leave again in like 13 days. This will last.
Buy a pair of shoes and some cigarettes, whatever.
It was such a special time, such a unique thing that we got to do. I think about the fact that for all of the stars to align in 5 different people's lives simultaneously that want to take part in, like a group effort, for everyone to be on the same page of everything else be damned.
Yeah.
It is like, are we all in on this?
Yeah. How rare is that?
And everybody was right there in that place of, yes, home can wait. Starting real lives can wait. Let's chase it.
And if you even if you meet people like that, to be able to sustain it for so many years and no one go, okay, I'm ready to go get married now. I'm leaving. It's been 2 years. We're not rich yet or famous yet, or,
right.
To do it for that long. And then I always say I was so lucky because I was in 2 bands that did that. To have Mike Illich was like our dad. He took care of everything and made sure we had a van with the oil change and everything was good to go, and driving across the country as kids. It's insane. And then getting to join up with you guys and then doing it even bigger and going bigger than you guys had ever done. And we go to Europe and then do the Hell on Earth tour and have our first tour bus and all that, which I want you to tell that story too. But it is absolutely insane. I wanted to bring it back real quick so we can catch up to where we are.
Sure.
So we went through the new metal stuff. It's clear that was where our influence was. We started Syndrome. And then we met Rob and Jeff Peterson, who were in Aphasia with Joe and Derek at the time, and Jeremy, who became the drummer for Robinson. Some people know this, but it's good to go through the history again.
No, yeah, it's wild how interwoven we are. It should be a bigger part of the narrative that I took over for Jeremy, but I couldn't do what Jeremy was doing even in Like the stuff he was doing on the Aphasia demos.
It's insane. I don't even know what you would call that.
I don't comprehend it to this day, but I said everything I had to say to convince them that I already knew how to do it. I was like, oh yeah. See, and me joining that band was just like how you described the whole moment with Robinson of like wanting to do both. Like you and Brady and I had our own little bit of momentum where we had written a couple songs, and then we had that one practice I remember where we had the most like inspired creative day.
Yeah.
Where we just came up with a couple songs, I think.
I remember having like 4 or 5 at least, I thought, by the time we were done.
In total, yes. But this one day, we like just... Jamming isn't the right word, but you and I have always had this very good communication while playing where it's almost like we can guess what the other, like where we're going and like follow each other somehow in this weird connection. And we did it with like 2 new songs to where we thought we'd have probably never been able to play it a second time. But I just remember that day we had never been so excited.
Yeah.
And like, this is it. We almost, because the goal was to get enough songs to where we could play with Aphasia.
Yeah.
We wanted enough songs so that we could play one of those Knights of Columbus floor shows.
Yeah. And for anyone listening who didn't catch it, Aphasia is from a Second Story Window before they changed their name and Nick joined. So correct. Jeremy, Derek, Joe, Rob, and Jeff Peterson. Jeff and Rob went to high school with Nick and I. And so they ended up coming over to one of our practices and hanging out and just saw how good Nick was. And then soon after, Jeremy decided to quit Aphasia, and they were like, we can call that Nick kid.
It was like that week. I think it was like that week.
Yeah, it seemed like it was like instant. So then he decides to join them, and of course we were stoked for him, but I'm like, fuck, I'm going to lose my drummer here.
And dude, and I didn't. I was so excited that at the time, I did not realize that this wasn't good news to you guys. Like it wouldn't be immediately received as like this exciting thing, even though it was like, to us at the time, because we were such fans.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Joe hates hearing how big of fans we were. It just makes him cringe, but we were such fans. We knew every word. It was like all I listened to.
We were going to every VFW show every weekend we could.
Yeah, so to me it was like Jonathan Davis asked me to join Korn and we'd all celebrate, but like, you know, we had just gotten this thing of our own going, and then I was immediately leaving it. But I in that moment, like, I wish I would have been more aware.
And like, we were 14, 15.
I just called and I was like, I have the best news ever. And you guys were like, really, really happy for you, man. That's great.
I genuinely was, though, because we were such fans. But at the same time, it was bittersweet because I'm like, there's no way he's going to stick around after a while. But it was the right thing to do because they were the coolest band in our little town and doing their thing. And then started to do regional stuff, right? Did you ever play any of those original songs live, or did you completely start?
No. So, I was ready and able to play those songs, and our first, I think, 3 practices were me playing like those songs, Anonymity and Timeline and Behind the Clouds and whatever. Like, I remember my dad found me a like pawn shop set of Rototoms because I was like, I need them.
Oh,
it's what the old drummer used, and I don't know what they are, but I have to, they look like this. And but very quickly we just immediately started making new things, and we made like that first Aphasia demo that I was on, the 4-song 59, 56 Yellow Roses and
Yeah.
Blue Girl.
Is that the one that Rob found the other day?
Maybe.
I
I
need
don't
to hear
know.
it. It's been so
See,
long.
I don't have one of those. What I found was the aphasia demo that I'm not on, the one with Jeremy and Jeff. Kathy had one, and I have that in my car right now. Like, you can hear it tomorrow if you want
Oh
to.
yeah, hell
Like,
yeah.
it's still like the moment it starts and that weird intro starts, the spooky shit, like, it just takes me back. But we made probably 8 or 9 songs that never got recorded, and before we landed on like the 4 that we went and did at Mind Rocket in PA. And I had never recorded drums for real. Definitely didn't do it to a click. Rob would scratch track with me, and we did those 4 songs. It was supposed to only be 3, and I remember we had like 10 minutes left, and I don't know how it was said, but it was something to the effect of like, you guys can do a 4th song if you can play it once all the way through. And Rob and I nailed it. The last song on that demo. Do you remember how that demo ends with Derek's like hysterical cackle laugh?
No, it's been too long.
Where he's just like, yes, yes.
Oh, I think so, yeah.
That was a real moment.
I never knew that was him or what that was.
We got to the end of that song without a mistake. And that's the last song on that.
Oh, it's thick.
That like breakdown ending, that dun 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 dun. And we just like got all the way across the finish line, and everybody like lost their shit because our 3-song demo CD just became a 4-song demo CD.
Yeah.
And like, crazy shit. My gosh, I was 16.
And that time, that's when the next big influence came in for everybody, which was Chimera. And I don't know if that was a bigger deal for us because we're close to Cleveland and not like, I don't know, like if they were more regional at the time, but that was a huge one for us.
I love them to this day. And, I mean, they got their flowers. They are a band that, you know, the larger metal world, everybody knows. But how uniquely special it was to us to see a band, because they went from just a Cleveland band that had their own demo to, I think they first signed to Roadrunner. They first signed to the label Slipknot was on, and there was no bigger than Slipknot.
Right.
And we were watching them at the Odeon in Cleveland, and just that This Present Darkness EP, as much as Slipknot was the first time I heard double bass, This Present Darkness was where I learned how to play double bass.
Yeah.
That batch of songs was just the next evolution of me in the basement with headphones and playing along until I could play to it.
That too was like, guitar wise, the double bass and guitar going together, like, I don't know, what do you call that? But like, that was the first time I had heard that, because Slipknot is so chaotic and all over the place, but they didn't have those kind of like riffs that were so groovy with double bass lined up with the tremolo picking on the guitars. And
see,
like,
they were influenced by the precursor stuff that we didn't have access to or exposure to. MTV wasn't telling you about Fear Factory.
Yeah.
And
I did hear Fear Factory. I just hated the vocals so much I couldn't get into it.
Yeah, I was, yeah.
But they're fucking sick otherwise.
Uh-huh. And Chimera was influenced by that band, and so that was our first exposure to, the machine gun kind of, on a dime tight rhythmic parts that we do to this day.
Yeah.
Like, that's like in our DNA. That's part of our bread and butter, is those like patterns.
Check out Earth and Eyes if you haven't heard it.
Right? That's exactly what I was thinking of. Is like, that's one of the latest songs that we put together, and that's 100%. You can draw a line straight back to Chimera and This Present Darkness. So yeah, like I remember they were just a Cleveland band and they got on national television. Do you remember that Farm Club show that was on USA? After Monday Night Raw?
Yes, I remember. I was so stoked for them and to see that. It was like the biggest deal to me that
Matt Pinfield was the host. Remember Matt Pinfield?
Yeah.
The MTV guy. And yeah, it was like from Cleveland, Ohio. There would always be one artist on every episode that was an unsigned thing.
They played Dead Inside, right?
Uh-huh. Hagar was still in the band.
I don't know how I remember that.
And like we felt like we had accomplished something by like watching that happen. And then they got signed and took off. And that was like, I remember thinking like we had made it when, what's the first record? Pass Out of Existence, their like Roadrunner debut.
Yep. When
that came out, because they thanked Aphasia in the liner notes.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And we were like...
Is that because you guys played that fest with them?
We opened the very first Chimera Christmas. That became this like massive thing. And we were the first band on the first one.
Wow. I remember that.
Yeah, man. And that show rocked me to my core and scared the life out of me. Because I was like 16 years old and the place was full before we started and we were the opening band. So like you kind of thought, it'd be not so scary because you're the first band. Yeah. But it was like they waited until the place was packed to start the show.
Yep.
And at 16 years old, I had to like play in front of, I think the Odeon held over 1,000 people. It felt like 1 million because it was just.
Yep.
And
I remember like, I don't know if I got to see you guys play, but I remember like, of course I would want to be there. I feel like I was coming up with Brady or someone else and we either our moms were late driving us up there or we got lost. But I feel like we caught only the very end of your set or something when we got there. I was so bummed.
I'll forgive you. But what happened to me when we started within, I think it was like the second song or something like that. That was when I was using my gigantic three rack toms, 2 floor toms, my first Star Classic kit, that purple kit, in front of all those people, the biggest moment of my life in music so far. And my floor toms and ride cymbal and like main crash that I would ride on were mounted on a straight bar that was a part of the rack.
Yeah.
And the whole thing, like I somehow missed tightening those 2 attachment points, and we're nearing the end of one of the songs, and all the cymbals and floor toms on my left side just go and like fell in on the rest of the kit. So I was like,
oh God.
And we had this part where it stops and Jeff introed us coming back into the song. It was like a vocal line that made us go back in, and we hit that stop and I'm screaming at the top of my lungs for him to wait, and he doesn't hear me. And I like fail to get it back up and then have to like come in so it didn't mess up his cue. And
I can't believe there's no one on stage that would run out and help you. Usually there's someone finally notices and will come out and be like,
dude,
offer mercy.
It was a while before I was able to think about anything else other than like that moment. Cause it was like, to me, it was the end of the world and everybody was watching, but nobody really noticed.
No, they're watching, but they don't care.
But definitely in terms of our, like foundational influences, I with zero shame whatsoever, I'll say Chimera's name anytime I'm asked.
Oh yeah. Chimera, Glassjaw too, kind of around the same time. And then that kind of started leading us into Poison the Well, Norma Jean, Every Time I Die, Unearthed. Who else was the first bands we kind of like got introduced to? Converge, Dillinger. But all that shit, that was our first dose of like underground. This is way cooler than your new metal shit. and we were like, oh,
Right.
like this is the cool kids club. How do we get in there?
Yeah, it was. I was still very much in the like new metal side of metal. It definitely was a lot heavier. The band's, double bass was a thing, and there weren't really so many choruses. But Opposite of December by Poison the Well, 100% was like the first big, here's something new again.
Yes.
Here's like it's like a factory reset on like, go find the other stuff like this. Like, what label is this? Trustkill Records. Okay. And then,
Yep.
yeah, finding all those other bands that were on Trustkill, like the early 18 Vision stuff, the best of.
Oh yeah. That until the ink
that
runs out, I played the shit out of that record in my car.
it holds up now. That Your Car. So that helps me remember. Yeah. Blood Has Been Shed novella.
Oh yep.
Still might be the GOAT in terms of like a heavy record.
Yeah,
I still don't think anybody's ever like properly topped it.
Yeah, whatever the cheat code they used in that recording. We always talked about that.
Just the constant 808 that's just never falling off. It's just plateaued from the moment the song starts. And like anybody listening, put that on and pay attention to the way every song ends. The band ends, and then there is this like, there's this rumble.
Like rumble, yeah.
That it's almost
we're
like
they're fucking cheating. What are they doing? What do they have under there that makes it so fucking heavy? And
because nothing made Your Car. I think Your Car had like the best sound system out of all of our shitty first cars.
Yeah. I don't know why either, because it was just a Grand Am, but for some reason those speakers were just like fantastic.
Oh, it was great. Yeah, listening to that stuff in like the early, you had all that like wild Lil Jon stuff that had like heavy screaming and
Lil Jon, like it was like half rap, half the most insane fucking metal. Like I'd be blaring Dead Water Drowning, and then right after that would be like Lil Jon, the East Side Boys, or Eminem or 50 Cent. Like those days were so much fucking fun. I miss it.
Yeah, and it was just it was simple. It was just we wanted to just make songs, and we truly were only ever making them to like please one another when we would be at practice. There was no ambitions of, and
that's
anything.
one thing that's like, to make it clear too, is like when we like, well, I say we, but I wasn't in the band yet, but we as a whole group would be finding these bands and getting influenced, and it wasn't like, oh, let's chase the new cool thing to hop on a trend. It was we're genuinely being influenced. We want to make stuff like this, because if we wanted to make money, we wouldn't have went this direction.
Our first conscious attempt to make something that didn't fall into the like Fear Factory, Chimera, for lack of a better term, new metal-ish genre. Our first genuine attempt after we'd been exposed to Poison the Well and, whatever, was I Tried Voodoo Once. That was the first song that we were like, we're not going to repeat stuff.
Yeah.
Let's be as heavy as we can get, and let's have a massive, moment in the middle. Like, let's find that. Like, and my opening drum fill to that, I straight up lifted off of our high school band.
Oh, that's right. I remember you told me that before.
Walking around at one of the Howlin' Tiger football games, the drum line, it might not have been exact, but it was like the game was over and the drum line was just playing. And there was this thing that caught me and stuck in my head where it was just bop, 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 bop. And I like walked home just like, it was stuck in my brain. And the way it came out was that little drum fill. Yep. And the snare accents were how I tried to like describe the vibe of that part being
Yep.
and the rest of it just kind of flowed out. And it's funny that like technically that song was written by just a room full of nu metal kids, because we still totally were. But the stuff that became that EP was like we were trying to discover our unique voice, and it was this like filter of all the stuff from the past that we had listened to and were, you know, there was nothing we could do about how influenced by it all we were. We genuinely were.
Yeah.
But we were trying to come up with something that could help us exist in this new sandbox we found.
Yeah. Well, you can definitely hear like the nu metal influence still in there, but not in a negative way. It's like, it's what makes it unique is you guys were halfway between genres trying to figure this out. But the nu metal side of that band still was always good. Obviously we were fans, and then you came in and made it cooler and better. And I don't know. I think that's what makes the band have its own sound. Like there's no other EP that came out at that time that has that sound to it, with the way you guys use melody and then heavy parts. There was no clean singing at all. And you had Sean come in basically doing black metal, high pitched screams and death metal lows. Yeah. And it was like this weird hodgepodge of all that shit that gave it this like one of a kind sound. And I was instantly a fan. I was so proud of you guys.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah.
I when I listen to it, I kind of went from nu metal into being like a pop punk kid. That whole EP is me pretending to be late 90s, early 2000s Travis Barker, but my band being, you know, full of heavy parts.
Yeah.
I was unapologetically a pop punk drummer, but like I got my feet to work to the best of my ability.
Especially that, I think someone commented about this, about River, in a river where you least expect it, there will be fish, recently, talking about the drum part, the pop punk drum part in the middle. And it's fresh in my head because we've relearned it. Mm-hmm. But that fill in there, and I went because he put a timestamp, and I was like, what part is he talking about? He was like, the drums that in that part were always amazing to me. Or I forget what his comment was exactly, but I went, and it's the one where Joe dances at practice because he doesn't like the part. And then that fill, I always loved that fill. It stood out to me. It's really cool. But I can hear what you're saying. Yeah.
Well, that fill, the majority of that exact part is like, we'll have to listen to it together. I shamelessly lifted but slightly altered. It was the drum fill off of the Take Off Your Pants and Jacket Blink record. The song is called Reckless Abandon. It's one of the last songs on the record, and he plays that fill. But I changed it in
my iTunes right now for later.
I changed the end of it. You'll hear it immediately. It's what takes them into the chorus each time. And it was always one of my favorite drum fills. And I 100% plagiarized the first half of the drum fill. That's why it feels like a Blink part, because it is. It totally was. It was because that was the only stuff I listened to then, and I wanted to play that stuff. Yeah. And I selfishly wove it into this heavy band. And I didn't think, I've had people tell me, you know, the unique style or whatever, that sometimes people are gracious enough to tell me that they think my playing is, and it means the world to me, but it's always just been, I'm just endless imposter syndrome, because I know I was always trying to be somebody else and feeling, you know, I'm never going to be Travis Barker, so I'm just going to pretend I am inside this metal band.
Right.
And
well, that's what made it cool. And because everyone's trying to be somebody, I was at first trying to be Monkey and Head, and then I was trying to be Jason Hagar, and then I was trying to be, you know, dude from On Ashes or Poison the Well or Every Time I Die. But because you can never be those people, you taking a swing at it makes it your own shit. Like, because you are only going to be you.
That's true. Yeah, like it was always man, I knew exactly what I was about to say and I lost it. Anyway,
Well,
I'll be mad when I watch this
yeah.
later.
Was it something about being a pop punk drummer in a metal band, Travis
Oh,
Barker?
okay. So yes. So when I look back on it, I'm glad that that's the way it was. I wasn't, and this isn't a knock against anybody whatsoever, but we were trying to make extreme music, but I was never playing as, like, I wasn't influenced by extreme music in the sense of the blasting, and I never spent 10 seconds listening to the death metal bands that people sound cool for having been fans of.
Yeah.
That people are cool for having, like, I wasn't that cool. I didn't know that shit.
And I don't know. Still to this day, death metal doesn't do it for me. Straight up death metal.
Yeah, it never really made me feel much. I was always unapologetically just in love with groove and would prefer it anytime I can in, a song, but like eventually learned, a weird version of blasting and like cheated at double bass before I learned how to play double bass, like came up with like some weird ass thing instead of double bass that kind of sounded like it. And I love that comes full circle in the new jam for literally 2 seconds. I get a kick out of it every time. It's like one of the most fun moments in one of the new songs to me is 15-year-old lying Nick to get into aphasia gets to
you mean the new Phil you just added to the new song that no one's heard yet?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that is great. First day you did that, I was like, oh, that's fucking sick. And I realized, we were just talking about your fake double bass before you could do it on the floor tom.
Yeah.
To what you said, like, you're never influenced by death metal. Neither was I. We come from the new metal shit and then works our way, I don't know, backwards, sideways, or forwards into hardcore and metalcore. But when I was in Robinson, people would try to talk to me about grind bands. I'm like, never heard a grind band.
Right.
I'm like, Nasum, I don't know, like, Tower of Rome. Like, I'm like, I love what we're making, but I've never listened to any of that shit. I'm not influenced by it.
Yeah, and I think those were more like your contemporary grind bands, like bands that were happening at that time.
Yeah. But like what the first, like, what's another, like, Discordance Axis, never heard that at the time.
Napalm Death.
They're like the Godfathers, right? So I had never heard any of that. And then when I did, I didn't like it. So I was just like, I'll just strum. I always say I'll just strum my Deftones chords while Jeremy's blasting, and that helped give us a different sound. So like, I love Robinson, but I don't listen to grind.
And that's what's so cool to look back on this stuff, like in hindsight, with an objective distance from it, knowing what our influences were and how we came up with certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we didn't change the world, but like, I love the stuff that came out of us.
Yeah.
That, like, it, for Robinson to have come from, a background that wasn't heavily influenced by grind.
Yeah. Jeremy liked punk.
Is like the biggest mind melter of all time for people that like love Robinson.
I never thought about that. Jeremy was straight up punk rock kid.
Oh yeah.
I was new metal kid. Greg was like listening to AC/DC and shit. And then Mike Illich was our rapper in an old band, and we made rock.
Greg was kind of, in a way, our gateway to a lot of the, like, he was the one that was hip to the early Ferret and Trustkill stuff.
Yeah.
And like, I'm pretty sure I heard about Every Time I Die and Last Night in Town because of Greg.
Oh yeah. I attribute all knowing about any of that stuff to him and Jeremy.
Yeah, for sure. That's 100% true.
Fuck, now I forgot what I was gonna say, but I was trying to fill in all the gaps of where we jumped ahead of. And I think we kind of nailed that. So like, yeah, so I'm in Robinson. Derek leaves the band. You guys give me a call. I say yes to join, eventually join completely or permanently. And then we did a couple of US tours before Europe, at least. I think the first one I did was Through the Eyes of the Dead, Acacia Strain, was Light the City. Yeah. The Smallest Mouth. For some reason, every time I think of Light the City, because we went to that party with them after one of the shows, and we played this game called The Smallest Mouth, where all you do is you try to make your mouth as small as possible. It's literally what it is. Just, for people on video, it's just, how small can you get your mouth? And we were drunk and just dying laughing. It sounds so stupid now, but that was such a fun tour.
I fail to remember her name. Their singer, I want to say Laura.
I think it was Laura. Yeah.
But we were like all chanting for her to try it. Just one of those, like, you can't explain it, drunken, stupid dudes thing. And she did it, but she went like this and like tried it, and everybody's like, ah.
Oh, that was so fun. And that was my first time meeting Acacia Strain dudes who you guys were already friends with.
Oh my God, at that point, that was like the third full US tour. Like, we only toured with them 3 times, but we did all of our longest tours were with the Acacia, with the exception of like the Steers and Beers tour. That was really long. But
shout out to Kevin, drummer of Acacia Strain, former drummer of Acacia Strain. He'll be on next. One of the coolest dudes.
I think you told me that, but I kind of feel like I forgot. That makes me so excited.
I think I told you I was going to ask him, but we just got a date locked in.
I have always referred to him as my favorite friend that I ever made while touring.
Yeah.
Because we spent so much time together, because like I said, we ended up doing a total of 3 lengthy full US tours together, and he and I just clicked from day one, and I love and miss that dude dearly.
Total sweetheart. I'm stoked to talk to him and catch up.
Yeah. What's up, Kev?
So yeah, Through the Eyes of the Dead tour. Then I don't remember what we did after that, because I think Europe was in. Both Europe tours were in 2007. I think
we left
in the spring. I think was the first one.
So here's how it went. We did the after Through the Eyes of the Dead was when we had our like catastrophic van breakdown in Colorado during the we were doing the dates with Number 12 and Cancer Bats.
Yep.
And we had 2 back-to-back tours where it was that package, and then it led straight into a separate tour that was, what was it, like See You Next Tuesday, Nights Like These, Heavy Heavy Low Low.
Oh yeah.
But we broke down in Denver, and by that, like, once we found out the few days it would take to get the van fixed, to meet up with the last couple shows, like the tour had gotten so far away and up through the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, it wasn't worth it. It was also the storms were so bad. Like, it's not even worth it to risk it.
Right. The treachery to make it to like 2 shows was it was impossible, not to mention that the first date of the next tour was going to be in like Colorado Springs, which was like 40 miles from where we broke down.
Yeah.
So we like, it broke my heart, because Number 12 were like some of the best friends we ever made as a band. Like, so much of the early career of FASSW, I feel, is like our bands are tied together. And having to like have that kind of reunion tour get screwed up that way bummed me out. But yeah, like the logistics of it just made perfect sense, that we were like, all right, well, the van's going to be fixed in a few days, but we can't make it all the way up there. And if we wait an extra few days, we drive 30, 40 minutes and we meet the next group of guys to
Do you
continue
remember
with.
when that storm first hit and we realized we were going to have to go to like Rob's friends or mom's friend's house or whoever she was? But like we were coming down that hill on the freeway. And we put chains on the tires, but they weren't on yet. I think, were you driving, right?
Yes,
and
I was.
I was in shotgun and Rob was, did I lose you?
No,
there you go.
I got the 20% battery warning on my phone.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm in shotgun. Rob's like in between us, and then you're driving, and he's like just talking you through it. Like, ease on the brakes now. We're coming up. There's a bend at the bottom, and it's just pure ice.
It was a just concrete wall at the bottom of this hill, and we're just sailing.
And you're like, I am hitting the brakes.
Anytime I touched the brakes, there was zero response at all. It was just
So
we were in a sled.
We were positive we were just going straight through the turn, right into the wall, and going to be dead. We ended up being able to slow down, and then we put chains on the tires. Never did that before. Yeah. And then if you've never done that, it's like you put rocks all over your tires, and you're just going. You have to go like 15 miles an hour. Yeah. That was probably one of the worst experiences with me and the band. And then we went and stayed in Denver and waited out the storms and shit. Mm-hmm. One thing I just remembered now is with the higher elevation, some people have trouble breathing. We were in this basement. We're watching Lord of the Rings or something, and it was dark, and everyone's getting ready to go to sleep and starting to pass out. And Joe just goes, "Is anyone else having trouble breathing?" And I think I was. And I was like, oh, thank God I'm not the only one. I was like, yeah, I am. I can't breathe.
Yeah, everybody remembers their first time in Denver, the Mile High City or whatever.
We may have smoked weed, though, and that made me paranoid. I don't remember.
That we had been to Denver. We had been to Denver. Yeah, Denver in the past. And the first time I remember destroyed me. It was, I don't remember the venue or what, but I do remember that we had to load up a flight of stairs, and I thought I was like gonna die. Yeah, like you can't. You're breathing as hard as you can, but it's like there's literally no oxygen. That's how it felt because you're just not used to it yet. And my hands got tingly and lightheaded, and you had one beer and you felt like you chugged a bottle of Jack Daniels. And it just like you got to be there a few days to feel normal.
Yep.
That's why like athletes and fighters will go and train in places like Denver, like Big Bear and Cali, because the elevation's so high that their lungs get like all calloused, and then they come back down to, like sea level, and then they're just monsters because it's like like Superman on Earth, where he gets so much more from our planet. Like,
And speaking of drinking there, that was my 22nd birthday where I had I told that story the other day, the elevator mishap, which I'm not sure if it's been told on this podcast yet or not. So if you want to take the honors,
I would. I'd be so honored. So yeah, Paul's birthday. We're in Denver. Just doing what you do for a friend's birthday at a bar. And he's, we're all wasted, but we were buying Paul specifically shots. So he was like uncharacteristically gone. And the bar we were at was connected to like a way too fancy hotel. Maybe the bar wasn't as dingy as I'm remembering it, but it seemed dingy because
it seemed like it was from what little memory I have.
It's probably because it was full of us.
Yep.
But Paul falls Rob tore him off of the bar stool.
With the scarf or my jacket or something?
He like lassoed you with a scarf and turned and just yanked, and you just ate shit, but you got up to go pee, and I knew the bathrooms were like this way, and you went that way. And so you stumble off, and I follow, and you go through a door. The door closes in my face. I'm a few people behind you, and then once I open the door, it's this like grand, like New York City looking plaza hotel, like marble everywhere and, you know, like carvings and whatever. And I open the door and Paul is eyes closed. In his brain, he's standing at a urinal, but in reality, he was standing at 2 closed elevator doors, just unloading a packed bladder onto these closed elevator doors in the lobby of this 5-star hotel.
In the lobby.
And some guy turns the corner with a thick accent of some type, and I'm not going to do the accent, but like just starts screaming, "You pee! You pee!" And I just grabbed you and just like drug you back into the bar, and we somehow like didn't get caught. But yeah, like
That's when I came to a little bit because it woke me up. I realized I came to in that hotel getting drug out, seeing the elevator doors going, that wasn't a bathroom.
dude,
And
the
then
waste.
you shoved me into the van in between the seats and you pushed me down and you're like, just stay here. And you closed the doors and you guys just hung out for a little bit. It was like I wasn't with you and you hid me and we never got in trouble.
The wasted moment that could have been if only that elevator door would, like somebody getting to the lobby. Could you imagine you're on an elevator standing at the door and the moment the doors start to part, you're immediately
Oh my
peed
God. Wow. Yeah, that was my worst drunk moment ever, I think. I've never blacked out like that before or since. That's crazy.
So this is taking us off the rails, but which one of us, because I told Rob this story when he and I went to go get the smoker. We went on that drive and we drove past Newton Falls and we both kind of like groaned as we passed Newton Falls from like the old parties out there when like he and Haley were out there and, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Which one of us was it when the one night after a party where the next morning, the noon spoon morning, when it's like you and Zacho and I hung over waking up, and was it you or Zach that woke up, were laying on the floor in this room, and just got up enough to crawl towards the wall and open the bottom drawer of a dresser and just
Just
that was
puke
like
in the
full,
jar.
it was
That
just
was
full of
Zacho.
sweaters.
That was
Okay,
Zacho.
I was telling Rob, and I was like, it was either Paul or Zach. I can't remember, but it was the three of us. And he just
Rob was so mad.
Slit it closed.
Remember-
Rob was like, I was
remember-
going to kill everybody.
Remember one other party there? There was like everyone threw up at the same time. Like someone threw up Derek threw up first on the floor. He was sitting there, and then Rocky like threw up in the bathroom sink, and then someone else threw up because that was so gross. And it was like 3 or 4 people all at the same time were puking all over the house. Everyone was wasted. It was so nasty.
It's like the tobacco scene in Sandlot when the boys...
Exactly. Yes.
Everybody's puking because one person puked.
And shout out to Zacho if he's listening, because he told me today, he's like, I want to hear about wrestling, the YMCA rock-off, and he said one other thing I can't remember.
So, without ruining my wonderful, camera angle too much, shout out to Zacho. Where'd it go? Oh, right back there. You can't quite tell, but that is a gift that Zach gave me that I love. It's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles panel that's signed by Kevin Eastman, the creator of Ninja Turtles.
That's awesome.
He randomly hit me up and he was like, "Hey, Tally and I are in town for a couple days and I have something that I think you might like to have." And I was like, "Dude, I'd just love to see you. I don't care about it. Just here's my address." And we had just moved in. The house was a disaster, but they came in and he gave me that. It was 2 of them actually signed by Kevin Eastman.
Holy shit.
And I gave one of them to Thad when he finished my turtle arm.
Right.
And the
That's
other
so
one
cool.
will forever live there. So yes, absolutely. Shout out Zacho. Thanks, buddy.
So there's so many things to talk about, and I know you don't have a lot of time left on your phone.
It'll last a while.
But so So I joined the band. We do some tours. We go to Europe. When do we record Conversations? That had to be at the end of everything. So we did Europe first, and then that's the other great story that you need to tell from your point of view.
Oh God. Yeah, we did both those Europe tours pre-Conversations because we had like weird early versions of songs that ended up on Conversations.
Yeah, there's one of Leaving the Earth with that old like nu metal ending on it. Or no, is it not?
That was Severed Heads.
Severed Heads, yeah.
We opened after like a couple dates on the tour. We were like, nobody knows who we are anyway.
Yeah, let's open with whatever we want.
Let's open with a brand new one. Nobody gets to do that. So that would have all been 2007.
Yep.
So
shout out to Red Chord for taking us out on their first one.
Yeah. And it was such an honor to take out such a young band like Architects and, really show them a taste of the life. I bet that was like the biggest moment they've ever had.
Yeah, opening for us. They really haven't done shit since.
They've been slumming it. Slumming it.
Amazing dudes. And so happy for them.
Their music videos are like Michael Bay budget level
Dude,
shit.
I know that new one. What the hell? That's amazing. Like, what the fuck?
Just like, okay.
I saw the behind the scenes. It looks like they're shooting an action movie.
Mm-hmm. Good for them.
Yeah.
Shout out to those guys too.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah. If there was go ahead.
I was just gonna say Hell on Earth tour, our first tour bus.
Yeah.
Shared with All Shall Perish and Walls of Jericho.
Yep. We stayed up, if you get to have the experience of touring on a bus, all the drives are overnight. It's never daytime driving. That was the best part is in the concept, ideally, is that while the travel is happening, you are sleeping. Mm-hmm. But we would always just, there was a lot of, we saw the sun coming up type, long rides where it was just beer.
We saw Stonehenge.
Yeah, we sure did. But so it was one of those like drank way too much. I wake up in my bunk and it's like the mother of all hangovers and the bus is stopped and it's off. So I'm assuming it's the standard routine of we're parked somewhere behind the next venue and I'm gonna, go find water and food somewhere because I'm dying. And I climb out of my bunk. I have my flip-flops, my tour pass, and just mesh shorts and a t-shirt. And I come down to the bottom level, or the first level is a 2-story bus. And that's when I can see out windows and I realize that we're not at the venue. We're at some big, fuel station off the highway. And the driver's inside. And I was like, oh, crap. And I'm looking everywhere for water. My whole body is just screaming water. And of course, we still had like 70 unopened beers on the bus. There wasn't a single water or Gatorade anywhere. And in my like stupor, I just go up to the bunk, get enough of my coins, my, little handful of euros, and just that Zach Galifianakis like drunk march in Hangover 1. That pantsless walk he does that's like so perfectly the drunk guy walk. I do that into this truck stop and I'm looking for the driver. Don't see him, whatever. I go get the water I can afford. I take it up to the counter, pay for it. I like everything's spinning. And I come back outside and the massive wall that was our 2-story bus and trailer is just the highway and passing cars in a field. And I'm like, did I come out the wrong door? It's over here. And it's just highway sounds and I can tell that the bus is gone. Absolutely gone. And it's barely barely sunrise. Like, out that way is black, out this way is like orange and red. Like, the sun's getting ready to come up. So the whole bus is sound asleep. Everybody is out cold. And I'm suddenly, and this wasn't far into the tour. This was maybe a week in. I remember thinking to myself, like, that's all I got to do of this tour. And I thought, like, how on earth will I ever meet back up with them? I'm going to end up having to fly home, and this is going to be a big problem later. Because I want to
say real quick, the reason this happened is there's a rule on, at least on that tour, what they did was if you are going to get off the bus and you're at a rest stop or something like that, you take off your tour pass and you leave it on the driver's seat so he knows someone's in there. And he comes in and he sees 2 passes. Okay, I'm still missing 2 guys. So he came in, he saw no passes. He's like, all right, I'm leaving. So that was a crucial mistake.
Not his fault at all.
Yeah.
So I am stranded in, like, no phone. Like I said, just free balling in mesh shorts, dirty white t-shirt, and flip-flops. And the water,
handful of coins,
in the bottle of water that I just had to have. It was more important than anything. I traded everything for this bottle of water, it turned out. So I'm like, I'm numb because it's such a shock. And I go into the gas station and I'm asking people that are, like, in a rush because they're starting their days. They're on their way to work. Like, nobody has time for the dirty, stinky American kid. And I ask a couple different people if I can use their phone. Because thankfully, you know, the pass caused the accident, but the pass I thought was going to save me, because on the pass at the bottom was Errol's number. Our tour manager. And, like, European numbers were like these, it's different than here. It was like 4 batches of digits.
Yeah, and the country code is different and all that.
Yeah. And so I'm asking people if I can borrow someone's phone, and I'm actually just getting told no. I'm clearly not from town, and people are just like, no.
Yeah,
and
you're gonna run off with it.
And then someone tells me, you know, like, points over to a little phone bank, and I quickly run out of money trying to call Errol's number. He's asleep. And unlike American payphones, where if your call doesn't connect, the money just cycles through and you didn't pay for anything, it just ate my coins.
Oh, my God.
And I come out kind of in a bit more of a panic, in this Scottish guy didn't have time for me, but he gave me his change. And I was just like, oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And he just, like, takes off. And I sit back down with a new pile of change, and coin after coin just getting gobbled up. And the pile's getting smaller, and I run out of coins.
Because you don't even really know how to dial the number.
No, man. It was, I was like, it was, the feelings that were coming over me were intensifying by the minute.
Yeah.
You know, like, how
I would kill to have seen your face.
How real of a thing I found myself in. And I run out of coins again, and I'm sitting in the booth, and I feel myself about to finally crack and start crying. And all of a sudden, I hear the voice of that same dude that gave me the coins, and I thought left because it had been like 10 minutes. Apparently, this dude had a heart of gold, because all of a sudden I hear, "Did you get a hold of them, laddie?" Literally, laddie. That really said that. And I just turned, and it was that dude that gave me the money. And he said it again. Did you get a hold of them, laddie? And I was like, no. And he's just like, well, where are they going? And I look on the pass, and that's the day we're supposed to play in Leeds. And I tell him, you know, like, the bus is headed to Leeds. And he just is living in the solution. He's like, I work in Leeds. I'm on my way to Leeds. Come on, let's go, laddie. We'll find them. And I was just like, okay. And I get up and get in this complete stranger's, like, Sprinter van. He's like a construction worker. He had tool belt and all kinds of shit in the back of his Sprinter van, and
we'll find them.
I get it. Yeah, I get in shotgun, and you know, still the worst hangover ever. I don't think I ever cracked the water. And we get on the road and quiet for a little bit, and he starts trying to make small talk, and then he asks me, one of the first things he asked me is my name. What's your name, laddie? And I was like, it's Nick. And he goes, madness! Mine is too! And instantly,
I forgot his name was Nick.
Dude, instantly best friends. We were just like, so
yeah.
It turns out that truck stop was like 10 miles outside of the city, on the way to the city, and Leeds was like the size of Youngstown, pretty much. It wasn't a huge place. And cities in Europe, for the most part, I'm sure there are some, but like the buildings are all like 3-4 stories tops. It wasn't like you get into a, like skyscrapers and shit to where once you're in it, you're just lost. It was just kind of like getting around a town. And
thank God it was only 10 miles, because what if you were like 5 hours out?
Right? I hadn't. That's where all the fear was the worst, because I had no idea where I was. So we get into the city, and all I had was it said the name of the club, and we stop at like multiple places asking if anybody knows the name of this club, and we're getting no's left and right. And he pulls up to a bank, and he's like, I'm going to go ask someone in here. And I'm sitting shotgun, still just like, what the hell is happening? And I look out the windshield, and straight ahead, the road dead ends, and the road that crosses it, dead center between the two sets of buildings, is the name of the club on a sign.
What the fuck? What are the odds?
Perfectly framed in between the two blocks of, this street. And I was just like, and I just get up, and I'm just walking towards it. Like I see the light, and that dude comes out, and he's like, did you find it? And I just point straight up, and he just goes, yes, good luck. And like, we like hug really quick. And he's like an hour late for work. He's trying to help. He's trying to save my life. And hopefully he didn't lose his job, because he took the time.
That's amazing.
And one of the regrets of my life is that we didn't exchange numbers.
Yeah.
My savior was a guy named Nick with a Scottish accent who I never again saw or heard from, and couldn't even begin to know how to find him. But he existed, and I remember you, and thank you, sir, because I start walking up the street towards the club. He takes off because, again, he's late for work, and right past the sign is, like the corner, and parked right there in the alley is the bus idling.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still blocks away, but I can see it clearly. And almost every day, Rob's one of the first guys awake. Mm-hmm. He's just, even if we stay up all night long, he would wake up like at 6:30. And he and Errol, I'm marching uphill towards the bus, feel like I've had the longest day of my life, and the bus door opens, and I see the two of them get off the bus, like stretching, knowing they're the first guys up and off the bus. And Rob like stretches and turns and looks, and he sees me and looks away, and then he's like, and I see him register that it's me, but it can't be. And I could like see his brain like cracking in half as I'm like marching towards him, like it's somehow his fault in that moment. I'm like, do you have any idea where I've been? And like, and
that's so amazing.
Errol like freaks out. The driver comes around, and he's like, oh my God. Well, why didn't you? And I was like, no. And it only took maybe an hour or two, the whole ordeal.
Yeah.
But it was such a crazy, like, it's a core memory of mine and always will be.
That's one of my favorite stories of all of them.
And like, I had to tell the story like 30 times that day, because as each person woke up, they're like, what happened? And I'm like, okay. Cheers, what? And every single person just reminded me how much of an asshole. Oh, reminded me how much of a dumb idiot I was, because everybody's like, "Did you get the memo about the tour pass?" And I'm like, I know, but I didn't know.
Another bonus fact about that tour pass is at the bottom where it had Errol's number. It said, "If you find me dead or drunk or whatever, call Errol." So it's like
he didn't care. After the initial shock of like me having been gone wore off, he was just like, "We have rules for a reason. Fuck you."
He's probably seen so much crazier shit. Shout out to him too. I saw him comment on something of ours. I think it was last year, but he was one of my favorite people I met on the road, and cool as shit.
I remember that whole Red Chord tour. We thought he hated us because that's just how he carried himself. And it was like one of the last nights he like got in my ear and he's like, "I just want you to know, you guys are my favorite band in the entire world." And I was like, "What?" And then like we like looked at his MySpace, because that was the thing at the time, and one of our songs was like 100% his thing.
It was like Morning for Morning, I think.
He waited till the end of that tour to be like, "I really like you guys."
That he was the reason we got Hell on Earth tour, is because like I was emailing with him after that tour, kept in touch, and he mentioned it or something. I was like, "Let me see if we can make it happen." And because we had to only pay for our flights, everything else over there would be taken care of. I remember we were like, "Okay, fuck it, like let's go." We went to Europe twice in the same year, and the whole career of the band has just happened. Like that was so crazy.
Yeah, man.
And we were what, 20 to 22 years old?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we like I think Rob even said it on his episode that we left for a month in Europe, and I think the most any one of us brought was like $150.
Yeah, I had no money. I had nothing. I think my mom probably gave me like $50, like whatever you got here. And then we would like stay. Remember the first one? We would stay at people's houses, and we didn't understand what was happening because no one explained, like, are you taking this to like an Airbnb type thing, even though that didn't exist then? It was like we're in someone's apartment. I'm just using the phone to like call my mom and say I'm alive, or like call my girlfriend.
Call Mara.
Yeah. But I was like, I don't care. No one's telling me like what the hell's happening. And then we stayed in that one place. We drank all their alcohol like a bunch of assholes. There's like mini shots of Jaeger. We got in trouble. Had to pay for that. We were just clueless as to like what was happening, and just children.
Like, we treated it as though like, oh, this fully furnished apartment with groceries and food in a fridge was put together all for us. That's amazing.
Yeah.
How these people?
How nice. We deserve this.
No.
So that was a life-changing experience. Go ahead.
So, side note, what do we do if my phone dies?
How much time do you have?
So I think doing this is like draining it faster than normal. It normally takes forever, but it went from 20 to 10 in like 15 minutes.
Right. Well, if you think we can wrap it up in 10 or 15, we're about, we've done an hour 45. I'm trying not to get them too long because most people are not listening to 3-hour podcasts. But...
It's been it says it right there. That doesn't feel, I was just about to say, I feel like we haven't even done anything yet.
No, dude, we're cooking. Is there a way for you to plug it in that room, like where you're chilling? Or your headphones are... Gotcha. Okay.
We're blowing the facade of everybody thinking I have a proper Mac setup and cameras and such.
Yeah.
I wish I could turn a camera onto my phone so you can see how it's set up right now.
With Thor's hammer.
Yeah, dude, it's like one little box and then another box on top of it because I felt like I looked too fat being shot from below. So I was like, this needs to be way up here, but now I can't get it to stand up.
No one has complained yet, but I've always I wanted to like go, is it awkward that I'm looking this way when I'm talking to someone? Because mostly everyone's been looking directly at me, but no one's complained yet. So I was like, all right, I'll just leave it there for now.
You got to start doing them in-person ones.
Oh, I want to. That's like my goal is to have a actual place to do this one day.
Just put a camera in that back corner and then just get real cozy with two people on the couch.
Yeah, the problem is once we do the band once, then it's like, okay, none of my guests are going to come to Ohio. So
it's a very good point.
I need a studio like in Austin where people actually come through, and then we can travel or scheduled around their travel. But that would be my goal, is to do it in person, because in-person conversations are much better. You don't have the lag of the internet. It's makes it you're awkward. Like, what? Huh? Like some of my episodes have had that problem, but I think it's going well so far. So
you'll 100% get there.
I'll figure it out. But thank you.
We'll look back on these early ones and be like, wow,
those look like shit. I wanted to touch on conversations and going to the studio, like us having this dream of being on the road when we were kids, and then you going and doing From a Second Story Window, me doing my thing, full circle, we're back in the same band. Now we get to go to a studio and write a record together proper for the first time, and how important that was to me then and still now, of going up to Syracuse in the middle of winter with a snowstorm. You're snowed into the studio. We went outside maybe once to go eat dinosaur barbecue.
There was no reason to leave.
I was a smoker then. I went outside, had half a cigarette, flicked it. I was like, nope, I'm done. I'm good. The whole time I just quit smoking. But what a cozy environment in the middle of winter to be trapped in that cool place where you have an apartment you're living in and you just record music every single day for a month.
I mean, that's still one of my favorite places in the world. It's like one of, even when we went last year for, a weekend to Marathon, So Say We All, and Earth and Eyes, it felt like home.
It did. It felt the same
in a very real way. Like the vibe, everything.
It's the same goddamn table that was there 15 years ago. We sat around and ate, crushed up weed on, drank beers.
Yeah. In terms of making that record, the one thing that I am proudest of when this band is ever brought up is that looking at each release is completely singular from one another. There are through threads and little the little stylistic stuff that makes it FASSW, but I am so proud of the fact that I feel like the EP is its own thing. And then Delenda was a very different thing from the EP, and the same exact goes for Conversations. I love the fact that each release we made, we were truly just making it for us. Because I feel like the big misconception around a band evolving into melodies and, as pretty much only this genre uses the term clean vocals.
Yeah. We never said that back in the day. We just said singing and screaming.
No, yeah. But the fact that the perception is evolving to using them, that what we did making Conversations was like a sellout move, when that's such a paradox, because it was the exact opposite in terms of, in my opinion, if we were attempting to sell out, I think the moment you sell out is when you are making something with the intention of it being what your fans want.
Yeah, what the most people will like.
I'm almost cringing that I use the word fan. What, the people that listen to your music,
yeah. What else do you call them, though? Yeah, I know what you mean.
We knew going into Delenda that if we just did the EP again, just more of those songs with the simple machine gun kind of patterns and Poison the Well chords, that's what people wanted. But at the time, we were wanting to push it in terms of what we could do. We had become influenced by fucking Ion Dissonance and the bands that like really pushed the limits of nonlinear, how many parts you can stuff into a song.
Yeah.
Like that was 100% what we were into at the time. And that couldn't have been any more different from the EP.
Yeah.
And the same goes for like
It made it less listenable, honestly.
Once you joined the band, it wasn't any kind of like, okay, now's when we cash in. Like it was, you know, people's opinions and judgments be damned. I've always loved melodic music, and what would it sound like if we stopped acting like, you know, because this is supposed to be some kind of rebellious thing.
Yeah.
And what would it sound like if we stopped acting like we needed to stay in some kind of box?
Yeah.
And
it was very much so like I joined the band and it was everyone kind of looked at each other like, so what do you want to do? Like it was just literally that. I remember saying that with Rob sitting in the trailer outside of a show. What do you want to write? I don't know. Just like whatever the hell we want. I was coming from Robinson, which was just chaos and madness. And you guys were coming from Delindo, which was chaos and a million parts. We're like, let's just fucking write some simpler shit that makes us feel good, whatever we like. And yeah, there was no like, all right, we need to make money because I didn't think it was going to work anyway. Like, let's do more singing. Let's make it more melodic. It was just us literally doing what we felt like and trying something different.
Yeah. I'm proud of all of it for that exact reason. The fact that we were being true to us. And goddamn, I hope this doesn't come off as pretentious, but I mean it in a very humble way of like that we were always coming from the right place.
Yeah.
And like, I know it for a fact because you know, like that was how we were going about things. There was never in any iteration of the band, there was never any thought of like, we gotta do the thing that people like. And, you know, like breakdowns became such a thing at a time where like the last thing we wanted to do was, you know, write one. Like Delindo was such a kind of like anti-breakdowns moment for us in a lot of ways.
Yeah, if you got a taste of one, it was gone very soon.
And shout out to Will Jackson. I love him with all my heart. The very first thing he did when he came to PA technically, the very first practice we had in the Sharon basement, we started playing, I don't know what, something that ended up Delenda music. The very first thing he did into a microphone was sing. And all of us were like,
yeah,
you know, like
it's like opened up something new that you never heard over your shit.
It was like we found a tool in the box that we didn't know was there.
Yeah. Like, oh, we could do that. Like, yeah, why not? We all love Deftones and shit.
100%. And after, you know, like a year or so of supporting Delenda, like everybody kind of came to the consensus that like, you know, that was kind of my favorite stuff on that record. Those moments were special. And in hindsight, like, did we like lean too far into it? I feel like Conversations could have been 30% more strictly heavy. I think part of what made the cleans in Delenda special was that they were sparse. And I don't think there's any mistakes in songwriting, but if we made any, it was probably that we were too close to like a 50-50 mix.
Yeah. I also think we like the heavy parts weren't heavy enough. They weren't aggressive enough. It was kind of oversimplified, and maybe part of that was near the end. It was kind of like we were already feeling like we're on our way out a little bit, and we didn't put I feel like we should have put way more work into it.
Yeah, I mean, it was one
Still
of those.
Proud of it, but yeah.
No, I love it. I can listen to it. Yeah, we never really did the thing where we wrote more songs than what fit on an album and then kind of picked the best of what, you know, like we had. We
definitely didn't need that acoustic song on there.
We with each record just kind of like wrote until it was time to go to the studio, and then whatever we had was just enough to make an album. and we ended up we would use it all. And I think people put too much emphasis on wanting to overly perfect things. I think there's a beauty in being bold enough to just like write something, put it down, and put it out, and let it be its own thing.
The imperfections make it interesting.
My favorite artists are the ones that do that. Like, I don't feel like Kurt Cobain scratched his head endlessly over parts, and I'm not comparing us whatsoever. I just mean like having that boldness to just be like, let it be what it is and put it out.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we did that. We definitely didn't. We were real, like careful with what we did. But
no, and this time around when we were recording the vocals for Lowest, and Sean was sending me stuff back and forth, like he like reminded me of that. He's like, I don't want to overdo it. Like, I don't want to keep going and going just for like a little thing. And like, I had enough to where I could like, okay, I can mix this. I can use these to pan these ones to the side. And I thought I didn't have enough, and I needed like 2 more takes of a certain part.
Yeah.
And then I just made it work. And I took a day away from it, listened to it again. I was like, no, that's it. Like, that's fucking perfect. And I was like, yeah, I'm glad he didn't want to just keep going and going and going, because you can do that forever. Same with guitar. I'll sit here forever if no one stops me.
And you can wring the life out of a thing and make it feel, like too composed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean you personally. I just mean like with anything. There's a magical window when you have to take your hands off of it. I think some of the best artists in like traditional art, like I think the boldest artists are the ones that like put the brush down.
Yeah.
And can go like how free we felt doing the Thunder Rider project after FASSW.
Yeah.
In like 2.5 minutes, and then just going, and then we end it, and then it's over.
Yeah.
And we just stopped doubting everything, and we're like, yep, that's the end of that song.
Yeah.
And
those were great, because like I would have one riff idea, kind of a loose structure in mind, and we'd put it together in one day, and we're like, that's it. There it is. Simple, and it's great. And I wanted to talk about Thunder Rider too. I forgot, because that project has kind of been forgot about on the podcast so far, but you're the perfect one to talk about it with.
That needs to find its way on the internet. Think about what people's perceptions would be of like, there is an entire album of a FASSW Robinson crossover, and what their perceptions of that, or what their assumptions of that would be.
Yeah. They're about to be disappointed.
The singer of Robinson, the guitar player of Robinson and FASSW, and the drum, like,
yeah,
they would rightfully assume they could confidently predict what it would be like.
Yeah.
And then get the most like clutch-ish at our heaviest, kind of like the
whiskey drinking, cigarette smoking, rock and roll, like, metal.
And that was like our rebellion against the non-linear, let's be as heavy as possible stuff, to just
let's go
let ourselves write some fun rock music, just because like when the band broke up, you and I weren't done. It wasn't like
ain't done.
It wasn't like it wasn't like it was taken away from us or unfairly stopped because of anybody else. But like, you and I were very quickly like, I still kind of I want to make music like now.
Yeah.
But not that.
And like the story of that is, I was moving to California. I had decided once the band broke up, because I was like, I got to get out of here and do something else if I'm not going to be in a band that leaves all the time and have a potential future with that. So I set a year to a date. I need somewhere to live in the meantime. So I'm going to stay at my mom's house for free so I can actually save money, because I had a shitty telemarketing job. Or our friend Ken, who was the bass player in that band Thunder Rider, invited me to live at his house for free as long as I mowed the lawn and started a band with him. That was it. I was like, okay, I can do that. So I go over there. They had started, Mike was singing and playing guitar. Ken was on drums, and I was going to come in and play guitar. Mike was going to maybe still play guitar, and then or maybe stop. And then we were kind of like, maybe we could do a 4-piece thing or
I mean,
whatever.
wasn't it supposed to be like Chris and Eric involved? Wasn't that part of the plan?
I don't remember. I just remember
Like
Ken
was going to play drums. Eric was going to play bass.
Something like that. Yeah.
And,
I think Eric was going to be on bass. Yeah.
And Chris was going to play guitar.
Yeah. And then that quickly didn't, like, nothing happened. And then they saw, like, okay, Paul's got some riffs actually for some shit for never playing bluesy stuff. And I was like, yeah, this feels good. Like, let's give it a shot. Mike had like 1 or 2 things. And then you came over one day and Ken asked you to tune the drums for him.
Right. Mike bought that Caveman John Bonham Gretsch kit with oversized drums. It was like a 26-inch kick drum, and the rack tom was like a 14, and then 16 and 18-inch floor toms, which I'm so happy to have found my way back to. But they just asked me if I'd tune them, and I did. It was more of like a Friday when we're all just going to hang out and party anyway. And I did that, and then you and I found each other looking at each other again, and I'm sitting at a pair of drums, and you're holding your guitar, and it was just like...
Yeah, and you, of course, played them after tuning them, and everyone's just kind of like, well, why is he playing drums? And then it was like, well, here we go. Let's do this, our 4-piece. Like Ken was a bass player originally anyway.
Dude, I remember, the simplicity of that writing was so fun. That's what it's supposed to feel like.
Yes.
You would have like your main riff and then an altered version of it as a verse. And I remember a couple of the songs, we didn't like fumble our way through figuring out how to play it front to back by playing it. We got that dry erase board and we just like main riff 4, verse 4, chorus 2, verse. We would write it down one time and then we would just kind of look at it and play through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And be like, done.
And God, did that feel good after like playing all the shit we played for years.
Right.
We're just in a rock and roll band playing in bars, drinking whiskey, and like, yeah, like it was just such a breath of fresh air, but also like numbed the pain of our career being over. Our career.
We played fun shows doing that too. We played some really fun shows.
Yeah, we were selling out that bar downtown Youngstown.
Well, I think you were gone by then, but we played with Clutch.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. I was jealous of that. Yeah.
In Struthers. Clutch came and played a show. Technically, we played like in a different, it wasn't on the same stage. It was a different room, but it was the Clutch show. It was the Clutch crowd.
Right.
And we like opened the whole thing, but it was them and Maylene.
Oh, wow. Were you guys still Thunder Rider at the time? Or were you that other band? Okay.
Yeah, it was Thunder Rider.
Awesome. Hell yeah.
Doing that was just so fun. That was as close to heavy as I could stand at the time. The rock and roll thing was such a breath of fresh air to me. And like post the band and being on death metal tours, I needed to fully cleanse my palate at that time. That was when I had like developed a relationship with like my aging and like dying uncle who was way into like awesome classic rock and gave me his CD book. And that was when I like dove into the Beatles and Eric Clapton, and like just the last thing I touched was heavy music.
Yeah.
And then when you and I would get together, we would just make, like awesome, fun, don't doubt 'em rock songs. Yeah. And like that was some of the most fun I've ever had in my life, was doing doing that. Because
I'm so glad we got to do that and record it full length, which I didn't. Yeah.
I don't have one. I wish I can't listen to it.
I will get it to you because I have MP3s and I have the actual CD still. So
it's got to find its way online at some point.
I'll get it up there. We've talked about it a couple of times now.
Wax Vessel put it out. Nick, we got the Robinson FASSW record.
Yeah, you want the Robinson FASSW crossover?
Could you imagine?
if he can do a cigarette ashtray vinyl design. I would die. It's yours if you want it, bud. So he's like, fuck you.
Yeah, before my phone dies, a a thank you to Nick, because technically all because of him. We've said it, you've said it on the podcast, it's been touched on, but in a very real way. What he selflessly does with Wax Vessel showed us that it mattered in a way that nobody would have ever been able to have convinced us of verbally. By, approaching us to do that release. And that getting all of us back in the chat for the first time in ages, and how immediately we all fell back into like the days when our chat would be just going crazy. Just immediately reminded me that like this is the funniest collection of people on earth. Like there are funnier people, but the combination of the five of us in a chat is just like, I'll never have a relationship that comes even close to.
I hadn't laughed that hard in years.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, him approaching us about doing that, like it gave so much life to my life personally. Like, I remember being full of doubt at first when the idea was we're going to do a big box set and it's going to be all of them, all 3 records, and then any demos you have, it'll be 4 LPs.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God.
So in my head, because, just full of doubt all the time, and there's a side of my brain that always tries to convince me that everything is bad. And I was convinced that I was terrified of the price point. I was like, people don't care. We've been a dead band for so long. No, like, I wouldn't spend that much money on John Lennon's glasses if I could buy them. So I was like, so why not like make it affordable and just do one of them? I remember thinking that, like, why not just the EP if that's what everybody like, holds highest in like the, back in the day factor. And I couldn't have been more wrong. I was absolutely beside myself that day when the thing went live and they were just immediately gone. I thought for sure that we were going to sit on them and have leftovers and be like, well, of course, nobody's going to pay that much. Like, who do we think we are? And it like touched a part of my heart that like I never expected us to, walk back through that door.
No, not in a million fucking years.
But it was one of the best gifts of my whole life because I've had the best time, and
he's directly responsible for us getting back together, us having new music, me living where I'm living now, me doing this podcast with you right now. Because I wouldn't have felt connected enough with anybody to have, or even thought of doing this before. So
I love thinking about this podcast in terms of like it being something new that has spawned outside of this that, I'll call it now will, go much farther. And, like our reunion just being a jumping off point for the next new big thing that you're a part of.
Well, thank you, man. I really hope so. I have no plans of quitting soon, and I think a lot about how I can get to that point where I'm doing it in a room with people and growing it, and it's just a lot of like logistics and money to get there, but I will take it one step at a time, and I don't plan on quitting. So,
I mean, you got a big mountain to climb to top episode 13, I can tell you right now, but just keep plugging away at it, and you might just get there one day.
Well, before your phone dies, would you like to touch on your barbecue journey and what you're planning to do at all? Do you have a minute?
Sure.
Because I've been bragging about it, and I talked about it in the intro too.
Oh, hell yeah. Well, I'm a middle-aged guy, and apparently that's one of the I've seen like memes about like the short list of what to do once you're a middle-aged guy, and one of them is like learn how to smoke meats.
Yep.
And I've been doing it for years on a really small scale, and the cliche saying that's true is you only learn how to make good barbecue by making bad barbecue. So I like learned from mistakes and I've always made, I mean, even bad barbecue tastes pretty good, but it can always be better. And it just became this thing that like got its hooks in me in terms of becoming what I dare call a passion. And I went so far down the rabbit hole of learning everything I could about it. And that leading me to the kind of, mecca of, like,
Oh, think I lost him. All right. So Nick's phone died. We are back. And good to see your face again.
yeah, I bet.
So I think kind of going back through the timeline and things we didn't touch on because we're not rushed this time. Getting to write music again, in this reunion phase that we're in, and starting with So Say We, which was an important one to me and still one of my favorites we've ever done. I kind of started that without telling anyone, and I told Sean because he was in the group chat too, and then I kind of just dumped it on you guys that one day, fully expecting a no from everyone, but it's like I have to give it a shot, and I had low expectations for doing anything anyway, so I was like, at least wanting to hear it because I'm stoked on it. So I'd love to hear your point of view of how that day went.
So when you first shared that, I'd love to hear that very first, like it would be so unlike what it is now, even though the majority of the bones of it were retained.
I still have it somewhere.
But I was blown away and also disturbed at how, like, accurately I felt you captured the way I would want to play a part. And the way you were just straight up saying, like, I just tried to write what I thought you would put on something.
And what would Nick do?
And it had that thing, and I was just like, this is exactly what I would kind of want. And a lot of it changed after that, but I just remember how strong and kind of undeniably us it felt like a song that had always been there, but it was a brand new thing.
Yeah, one of the first things you said to me was like, about time you wrote that one.
Yeah.
And it felt good. It just came out because, like, when I did that kind of breakdown video on my YouTube channel, but I just started with, like, what's this band always been? The essence of it is melody and heaviness and dissonance. So I just let me just start simple and not overthink it as to chord. There's a dark, scary, dissonant chord. There's a pretty chord. Now let's put some blasting and double bass over it, the best that I could do to make it sound like Nick, and then take it heavier and go from there and kind of right the wrongs that I didn't like on Conversations, listening to that. And then, yeah, it just fell out.
I feel like that song is like, if you were to take Conversations and wring out all the juice, all the if Conversations was like a piece of fruit that if you get the liquid out, you get out like the best part of it, like just the concentrated essence of it. It's like all boiled down into that song. And
I would agree.
I agree with you that it's I'll echo what you said, that it's one of my favorites too. Like, that song, even on the practices where it's like a Thursday night and I've already worked all day and rushed home and, got kids fed and whatever, and then got into the practice space like exhausted and kind of feel like I just want to go through the motions, and I'm not going to get into the songs. I'm just going to play. I'm going to sit here and play, and then we're going home. By the time we're playing So Say We All, I get totally sucked into it and start hitting 4 times harder and just lose it playing that song. That song is a like a joy to play. And
It is. It's just fun. It's like simple, but it's not. It just feels good.
Yeah, it really does. And the sum total of that, awesome little 7-inch that I'm so stoked like exists in a little piece of physical media to capture that first kind of reintroduction.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it, and I don't think there could be a better, like kind of swan song for Will in those two songs. I agree with Guy 100% that it's the best work he's ever done, like the strongest stuff from him, and I'm so proud of him for the way those two songs came out. And
the singing parts were tastefully done and not overdone. His screams and like different styles he did were all just so murderous. That end scream he does on "So Say We All," that when I recorded him in the booth, was and Jocko goes, "Holy shit!" We were all like, "Oh my god!" Like that was like when he was in there for conversations, killing and belting out those screams. I remember back in the day because he was writing as we were in there.
Yeah,
it wasn't done. We didn't know exactly what he was gonna do because he lived in North Carolina while we wrote, and like all of a sudden he's in there just belting this shit out, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!" And it felt the same way 15 years later, just sounding better than ever.
100%. It's been so fun.
Hey,
and like even when I watch shout out Nick Serra, like his footage from the reunion show, and I forget how those songs were essentially the same, but they weren't what we like wrote them into to finally be. There's like little differences that always catch me off guard when anytime I like have that playing, and I'm like, oh shit, that's right, this is like a really early version of it. But
Earth and Eyes was quite different.
Yeah, it just, we didn't have the idea of like the vocal intro and
the back and forth part with Billy from Nights Like These. Shout out Billy.
Yeah, hell yeah. I love the episode you guys did that put him and I back in touch. I watched that episode and I was like, everything he is saying is 100% correct. Why have I not talked to Billy?
Dude, I love that episode. I just listened to it the other day because I'm going through and pulling out like medium length clips to just post on YouTube like podcasts do, to kind of get people who might not want to watch a full one, who don't know me or know us. And I watched that one. I was like, man, this was really good. I really enjoyed that conversation with him. He's an awesome guy.
I told him after I got you to give me his number, that his like vulnerability I thought was like very important and like a meaningful thing to share with people.
Yeah.
It is, difficult as that is to do for a lot of people.
I think it's a little easier for us now that we're older, because I never would have before.
Yeah. But still, there's that like dumb old school, like a man suffers in silence kind of thing that like there's upsides and downsides to it. But I mean, it that shit can eat you alive. And talking about things like mental health, even if it only really kind of connects or helps one person, like I felt like I got something out of listening to him and talking about that stuff.
Yeah, I think he kind of needed it, their reunion, just like we all kind of did, in various, different levels of needing it. But I've talked about it a few times that I was in a dark place, and it helped me pull out of that and have a purpose again.
Yep.
It helped you, it helped Rob. Rob, specifically said how important it was to him because of what it did for him back in the day. He was kind of a lost kid who was sad or angry, and kind of gave him a purpose. same with kind of all of us. And the way we left it was just kind of like, we just stopped. There was no ending. We weren't even planning on really ending it because we had a record coming out. And then now we get to kind of revisit and open the chapter or open it again as long as we want and close it how we want. So it's really a beautiful thing.
It really is.
Thank you to Nick again. Yeah. At Wax Festival for doing all that, because none of this will be happening if that didn't happen.
It's 100%. Yeah. When it abruptly ended, I didn't handle it at all. I mean, I didn't know who I was if I wasn't the guy that plays drums in that band that's never home. It was all I understood about myself at the time. And like my habits were about to become a problem because I wasn't going, like, if I could have in a healthy way addressed that loss as an actual loss, the way, like it really was. Yeah. I tried to just like party my way through it and be like, everything's fine. It sucks. The band's not a thing anymore, but everything's fine.
That's what I did. I just did it in a different place.
I'll just crack open another one. And I don't want to turn this into like a recovery session, but like I got deeply lost and lost years and got into like in the kind of dark place that either will kill you or change you forever if you find your way out of it. And so much of that, I mean, when I look back on it, they were problems that I always had. They were very easily disguised in that kind of a lifestyle to where, like just by the nature of how things were, we were at playing a show every night and everybody's drinking beer, and it didn't stick out as like me having, a substance problem with like drinking or whatever, when it was just kind of what everybody did every night.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, when we came off the road, that didn't stop. It just increased and got out of hand. And I ended up in full blown addiction that took years away from me. But it's a weird thing that, as dark and, uncomfortable as that period of time is, it also like helped turn me into the person I am today, in terms of, I don't know what it is about me that I have to like learn lessons in like overly dramatic and as painful as possible ways.
Yeah.
I don't evolve smoothly. I don't, I don't, I've learned how to learn easily.
Yeah.
I've gotten good. I dare I say good at it. But, yeah, it's always like got to be some dramatic thing. Like I've heard people say that, for a while, the universe will, give you hints and like whispers. And after a long enough time of you not paying attention, the universe is going to start throwing bricks.
Yeah.
And yeah, some big old bricks. I spent a long time like, what's his name? Marv in Home Alone 2. When Kevin starts throwing the bricks from the roof.
One of the most violent scenes in those movies.
So that was kind of close to the next decade for me in a way. I got very lost, and I hid it from everybody. Hid it from everybody that loved me. And like I said, I don't want it to derail the whole conversation and the happiness that this conversation is, but
no, but that's an important part of like knowing what you lost and how important it was to all of us, and how ingrained we were in that lifestyle, that with no backup plan, when you take it away out of nowhere, it like quickly was gone, how you're just going to be just lost. And I did the same thing and just moved to LA, and I just drank and went out and partied and went to clubs, and I shoved myself into this new lifestyle that was completely opposite of who we were. And like, I'm at nightclubs with club promoters and actors and people who like looked completely different than us. And it was just like, it was a complete distraction because I didn't know what else to do, and eventually got out of it. But, and still just a few years ago, I was still in a dark place too. And so this kind of like woke me up again and was like, well, if you're missing this, you have this hole in yourself, it's a creative thing, like whatever. It didn't have to be this band. This whole time I could have been doing other things and like whatever, but this shakes you and wakes you up because it's like, it was such an important part of our life, and I think doing it with important people again too helps. And like, it made me move back here. Like, I'm only 10 minutes from you right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I've found very few things in my life, or experienced few things in my life that give me what this band does. It's part of why I internally like want to do anything I can for it, because I feel like I am forever in its debt because of the, like, my dreams weren't to be a millionaire. My dreams were to go on tour. My dreams were to, like that career narrative thing. And when that stuff came to fruition, it meant absolutely everything to me, even though, and it's something that I've learned through the dark road and down, and, learning how to pick yourself back up, and dare I say recovery is learning how to, appreciate the present. Because I didn't then. I didn't realize how uniquely special that really was, even though it was, hot dogs and, not knowing where we were going to sleep, and our pockets were empty, and our families didn't understand why we were still trying. But like, it was such a uniquely special thing that we shared, that we got to do. And it always ate a hole in me that, like, we didn't know our last show was our last show when we were playing it.
Yeah.
And so if for any other reason, I love the fact that us doing this again means that we will one day, when we get there, knowingly, with intention, play a last show. And it won't be in a sad way. It'll be a cathartic closure that none of us got to have the first time.
Yeah.
And that, I think, it will be a totally different experience than the last time.
Yeah, that's going to be a really important way to close the book and go, okay, we did it how we wanted to.
Yeah.
And
like, I selfishly want to just, like, there's nobody that says you can't just keep putting out music, forever. But there's a part of me that also doesn't necessarily want us to just kind of be, like,
kind of aimlessly just keeping it open.
I don't want anything to fizzle, but I respect this enough to not want it to be something where, like, we're barely keeping gas in the tank, just because we're afraid to, like we've talked about already with art and songwriting, like, because we're afraid to just put the brush down.
Yeah.
Like, I want to boldly make one more piece of art and know with, like, full satisfaction that I can put the brush down and be like,
yeah.
And I think I'm not talking about this as like an ending of a thing. Like, this is going to be a process and a journey that we're just in, like, the beginnings of, it feels like.
Yeah.
But I've never been more confident in this band's ability to make, like, I want to make the best art we've ever made. I want to make the the best version of us that we haven't yet made.
Yeah.
And that has enriched my day-to-day life in ways that, like, that was the hole that was kind of missing.
Yeah.
You know, like, I have a fulfilled life today with a family and healthy kids and a good job and things like that. But inside that day-to-day kind of monotony, especially with like work, I've found that my day-to-day has been dramatically improved by the fact that I have this outlet again, and this goal to work towards of just just being creative again.
Yeah.
That's kind of what, like,
having something to look forward to outside of the day-to-day.
Yeah, that's one of the things that hit me the hardest that I didn't really think about, was like how much I got out of getting to create. I mean, making music is some of the coolest things I've ever gotten to do. Like, there's nothing better than that thing that we talk about, that thing that we think about, and we try to put together. That first time you get to have it played back to you with your hands off of it.
Yeah.
Like, that shit is pure magic to me.
It is. Yeah.
And it's the most addictive drug there is. And I love what we're doing now. And I love once again, like, there isn't any concern about expectations or trying to make a certain kind of thing. Just as Delenda, we were in our, math core, whatever the hell you want to call it, like, thing. We currently find ourselves wholeheartedly wanting to just, how relentless can we make something and have it still be from a second story window? Let's find out.
But also, like, fun to listen to. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't listen to stuff that I don't find fun to listen to.
Yeah. And, when I started working on Lois before Sean even joined, I didn't realize that, like, it could be FASSW too, because it was supposed to be this little side fun thing and had the bones to that. And now listening to it, I was like, yeah, this whole time it could have been, because it wasn't like I was just trying to write like Robinson. I don't even know if I could, because it's been so long, and I wasn't really trying to. It was just for fun, like, oh, I'm doing Robinson-esque thing. And then Sean's stoked to sing on it, and then all of a sudden Will's stepping down after Furnace Fest, and here we are with this demo that we started. I show you, I think, maybe first, and you were like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Even before it was going to be from a second story window, you're like, if you guys are going to do a side project, I want to do it. And I was like, all right, well, of course, I'm not going to ask anyone else. You're the guy. And then it just became FASSW and it worked. Yeah.
I remember that. I mean, it was undeniable in terms of, like, we can't just let this be some God knows what thing. Like, this has the ability to, like, feel special coming from this band.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like,
the only thing not FASSW about it now, listening to it, is that it's short. That's it.
But what's the one thing we hadn't done?
Yeah.
You know,
a little song less than 2 minutes.
I would say if we had any fault, it was being too long-winded at times. And I feel like we say and get more across in that minute and a half than a lot of the long-winded Delenda stuff or conversation stuff. I
think the EP works the best with the long-winded because it's only 5 songs. It takes you on a journey, but it feels like there's like 10 songs in there, and not in a bad way.
I mean, that 5...
There's something about the way it flowed, yeah.
That 5-song EP is 30 minutes long. Like, we didn't know how to end a song. It was just like, gotta keep going, gotta keep going, gotta keep going. And Lois was just like, why can't it just be done now? Like, what bigger thing do you take that song to after the way it just organically wants to be done? And
I remember I had like 3 different endings for it too, kind of like So Say We.
Yeah.
And I was trying to make it too smart and too like cool or artsy. And then I was just like, one day I just go dun 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 dun. I was like, fuck you, that's it.
Well, yeah,
like we've never done a caveman part like that.
That goes back to the same thing that we've already touched on of like, there's something to having enough confidence to like not over criticize everything and try to overwrite something, because it can start to feel overhandled. And that song, like, I love it. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you for making the drums better too.
I wasn't happy at first. I was just like, I don't play like that anymore. I don't know if I was like, I don't know if I ever did, but like, I don't know.
You for sure did. Cause when you were first kind of like unsure about how fast you could go, I was like, you did crazier shit on Delinda. And there's no way to know the tempos of those songs because they're all over the place. But I was like, you did plenty of crazier, faster shit. I was like, you can rock this.
It was a great motivator.
Yeah, one day we'll get that drum playthrough we promised everybody out on YouTube.
Oh yeah, and for the record, we did record that once, but then it didn't work. Like the audio and the video didn't sync. Something
fucked up.
We got a great one, and I was all excited and left practice like feeling like $1 million, and like, oh, I can't wait to see this edit. And then you're just like, the audio doesn't work, and that was like
I was so confused.
And at this point, that was like a month ago.
Yep.
And
we'll
in
still
that.
Do it.
There's
the song has only been out for 2 months, almost less than 2 months. It feels like way longer.
Time.
Yep. But I'm stoked to continue that direction and the new material, and for whatever this EP is going to become, and to see what Sean will do going forward. And having him back is really cool for us and the people who love the EP. And without him, we wouldn't continue if Will was going to step down. So
no, there was no version of reality where that could even be considered. No. If it's, I mean, asking people to stick with a band over any, like lead singer change is asking a lot. I know that for a lot of bands that's purely death, and thankfully the 2 singers we've had are 2 exceptional ones.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't one of those 2 voices, there was never going to be any entertaining of trying to force people into accepting, like, here's a new thing again, it's newer.
No, we can't do this with anyone who hasn't been in the band already at this point. That would be just silly.
And I don't know if I've ever been more excited for a show than this Columbus show coming up. The intensity and the intention that I feel every time we get together to run the set, as though like there's like a whole new life breathed into like what we're going to do, what we're going to try to do when we get on stage. It's not trying to recapture anything. It's trying to just, like, without sounding whatever about it, but just make that statement of, like, this is still one of the craziest bands you're ever going to see. Because I used to be so proud of that, like, back in the day. I mean, I think that's on the sticker of, like, the EP. known for their outrageous live performances, and like that was like it wasn't so much about the music. It was like, what, you got to see this live spectacle kind of thing. Like finding a more focused version of that intensity.
Yeah.
Again, for these upcoming shows, please come, because we're not treating Sean's first show back lightly.
And it's in his hometown, which is really cool.
Yeah, man. This is, I don't know. Like, I feel so fired up about it. Almost like,
I'm excited, especially after the last week of practices. They are feeling, when you get locked in and you've been going hard for weeks, like we're finally back in that spot where you want to be. And the last couple have been like, okay, feeling really good.
It's like it's peaked.
Yeah.
It's like I feel like before the reunion show we peaked too early because we started practicing so hard and so often that it was like, okay, I feel like I can play the show today. It's 2 months from now.
Yeah. Yep. I was practicing in Austin by myself to all the records, and I was just like, I am over preparing and overthinking now. But it worked. We sounded great, I thought, and we pulled it off, and all those fears of I'm too old now or whatever just melted away. Like, nope, we can do it. Because one of our, like you said about it being a crazy show, or like if we can't at least pull a version of that off at this age that can, I don't know, at least hold a candle to what we used to, we don't want to do it. And
the idea of all of us getting together that weekend in the summer of 2023, like I remember us talking about how let's get together and see if we can do this. And if it's not every bit of, what it was, then nobody has to know we ever did this. We don't have to say we don't have to say a single word about we got together and tried on the FASSW shoes to see if they still fit. Like, we can just post a photo about like, great to meet back up with old friends, and and I was ready for that as a potential outcome of it. I was like, I mean,
it might be a disaster.
Well, it means enough to me, and I value it to where I would rather leave it be if it was going, like I wouldn't want to play a show and have that be people's new last memory of having seen us. I would have rather left it alone. And I love being in this band today. I really do.
Me too. I think we're doing it better than we ever did in a lot of ways, and it feels really good. And there's no pressure. There's no like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to play this show. We've been on tour for 2 months already, and it's like,
well, it's like we're grown-ups now. So we've like
sometimes
we found this now in that stage of life where we've all kind of learned the value of like you get what you get out of something, what you put into it. And know, like, the fact that the whole career up to the disbanding of that band, like, I didn't work at being a musician.
Yeah.
I didn't, took all that shit for granted, and we just play when it was time for a show. We would practice before a tour for sure, but like, I didn't work on my craft, if you want to call it that. I didn't work.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Like foster my relationship with the drums. I didn't, none of that. And finding that again, and like, I have found a passion and a relationship to playing that I can confidently say like I never had in the past. Not saying I'm a better musician. I'm just saying that like I connect with it more now than I ever did then. It's It's the best.
I think that makes you a better musician. I'm better than I ever was back in the day. Like, you're putting in the time, you're putting in the work. You may not be as young and wily as you used to be, but I think you're sharper, tighter. You know, you could always be just as fast as you were. Like,
I guess the only real difference now is I have to stretch and warm up. When I was when I was a kid, I didn't have to do a damn thing. I could just sit down and fly. And I'm 40. So like I'm downstairs in the practice space a good if I'm 15 minutes early, I'm really late. I like to be there like at least 30 minutes before anybody else shows up so that I can like stretch for 10, 15 minutes. Ideally have already broken a sweat before the first one of you guys comes down the steps so that I can like play hard.
Yeah. It reminds me of Undertaker getting ready for his one show he does per year.
Yeah.
When he's like, it takes me 6 months to get ready for WrestleMania. And I'm like, I'm relating to this now because, like, obviously I play guitar and it's not as physical, but the shows are physical. So I am like stretching my neck, stretching my back so I don't throw something out. Like, I've never gone particularly insane because I like playing well, but it's still like, it's a lot.
That Last Ride documentary is the perfect example of not wanting to, like, needing to know when to put something down and when to call it. He always wanted to top it. And in hindsight, what do you think? I kind of feel like it would have been it would go down as the most iconic moment in the history of that company if he went out when Shawn did.
Yeah, that Hell in a Cell match.
If they retired together.
That WrestleMania 26.
Yeah, wasn't that it? Oh, well, I guess
they did two in a row. 25 and 26 were both him and Michaels, and the second one was Shawn's retirement match. But I think he was still fine until he did that Hell in a Cell against Triple H where Shawn was the ref. And I think if the streak was ever going to be broken, the only person who deserved to do it that was still around was Triple H. And when they did that combo of the super kick into the pedigree, that could have been it. The one time. If not, fine, keep the streak intact. That's just as cool. But he should have walked off after they did that big. They're all standing up at the top. They waved. They put on an incredible match. He was still great. That would have been it. I think that's where he should have been done either way.
Yeah. But like that, I love that documentary is just showing some like having trouble coming to terms with, being at the end of a thing and how hard he was on himself and like always wanting it to be the perfect thing. Yeah. And that's like what we've been talking about with like songwriting and like not wanting to overcook something and knowing when to, let something be good enough. Like if anybody should have felt completely content with their place in the history of something, Undertaker should have known that like he didn't have to do a goddamn thing, but he was just haunted.
He just didn't want to quit.
Yeah. He loved it too much.
But at least we get to choose our last show this time, and I know we're not going to do that.
Yeah. 100%.
What were you going to say?
I don't know.
Well, I would like for you to touch on your barbecue thing before we get out of here.
We can do that.
We started to before your phone died, and just let you start over on that.
So, yeah, I don't have the, proper infrastructure in place to where I'd be anything but full of shit if I were to act like I have like a business that's about to explode or pop off. But I've fallen head over heels in love with making barbecue specifically kind of there's so many different types of regional barbecues, but the thing that I love the most is what's been kind of coined. It's almost like there's genres in barbecue. I think we talked about this once, where it's like in genres of music, there's Carolina style barbecue and there's this and that, but like Central Texas barbecue is kind of referred to as craft barbecue, which is the meticulously labored over brisket and ribs, and keeping things more on the simple side of things with minimal ingredients, like just straight salt, pepper, and burning a clean fire. Yeah. And knowing and trying to recognize the hardest thing is, with specifically say something like a brisket, is finding you have this perfect brief period where it's done. If it's too early, if you pull it off when it's too early, it's going to be too tough and it's not going to be as enjoyable. You go a little too far and it's going to want to fall apart. The art and the skill of it is finding that perfect bit of doneness where when you take it off and let it rest, it slices beautifully and it doesn't fall apart when you pick up a slice. It holds up under its own weight, but with the slightest tug, you pull it apart. That's right. It's like this constant pursuit of perfection thing. And that's what I fell in love with barbecue. And I haven't had as close as I can come to patting myself on the back about it is I haven't had an outright failure yet in my barbecue journey where I've just mangled some expensive piece of meat and been ashamed to feed it to people. I've found I get such joy out of spending the time, hours and hours making something and then seeing the enjoyment people get out of eating it. I get the same thing I get out of, similar to the band in the way that felt if, a song I was proud of, somebody said something kind about it to me and how good that felt. That's the same thing I get when, the other day when I brought that brisket to practice and everybody was just
dude, it's incredible. I've had your brisket, I've had your ribs, the burnt ends the one day, you hold up to any of the best I've had in Texas, and I'm not just blowing smoke because you're my friend. It's really fucking good. It's amazing. So I can't wait. I know you're not ready to launch an actual business, but that is the trajectory you're on, and you have a product I think will take you there. My cat's yelling. Sorry if you can hear him.
No, that's fine. Yeah,
I know, buddy. Almost done.
That is 100% my goal. I have a full-time job and a family, but I'm getting to that point of not in a negative way, but I'm no longer feeling like I need to just be content doing what I'm doing, even though it's a safe and secure, predictable path forward. But I now have enough of a passion in a new thing where I'm feeling drawn to following it and chasing it and wanting to take that chance. All those people that, bet it all on black and take that risk and leave the safe job to try the new unsure thing. All those successful people that do that, they say that was the most important step to make.
Yeah.
And I want to find that escape velocity through making and selling barbecue where I find the right small place that that's one of the things I find so charming about barbecue is these world-renowned places in Austin, Texas. These people put up smoke shacks and build some wooden pavilions and just put picnic tables outside.
Oh yeah.
And in a whole culture flocks to it. And people wait in line for hours. And
that's part of the experience too, sitting outside, drinking a beer. It's just
I'm not. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
I'm not claiming that like I'm going to be able to pull that off, but like that's the dream
Yeah,
is
it's
a
very doable as compared to like having some huge restaurant or something, you know?
that's the last thing I want. I don't want some like tons of seating and create like they say like 90% of new restaurant ventures like don't make it past like a year. I feel like people have a great idea and have a decent product and um then go to a bank and borrow a ton of money to dump into a place that, is just like a blank canvas.
Yeah,
And
that's too much.
they pour their heart and soul into it, but you're a $500,000 in debt before you've, like opened the door.
Uh,
And that's the one version of doing it that I don't want to do. I want
yeah,
to slowly and organically, similar to how Rob grew such a successful business in our
yeah,
town without dude's never advertised.
yeah.
You know,
Word of mouth.
it's it is reliable, consistent quality, and uh, just unmistakable passion for what he is offering people that
Yeah,
keeps bringing people in and bringing people to tell the next person. I'm heavily influenced by him and Joe in their business acumen and how they've both become these self-made men that, were willing to bet on themselves.
yeah,
And I feel this like slowly bubbling momentum towards finding my time to do the same thing.
yeah.
And
Yeah, start small, start slow, but let the product speak for itself and you'll get there.
I'm I'm extremely excited. Like life's never been so full of like um I don't know, satisfying outlets that just really keep me happy. It's like I'm perfectly content with just my marriage and my kids,
Mm.
but for whatever reason I'm lucky to have uh so many different things that like I have such a genuine passion for. This band, the pursuits with barbecue.
Mm.
I hope to
Sorry,
get back.
watch your mic there. It's getting noisy.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, think
That's
having the band and the barbecue venture, and then I have like this and the band and whatever else comes out of this. Like we are all gaining more than just playing music from this, and
right.
it's really great to see. And I'm proud of you, and I'm excited to see where you take things. I shit you not, the barbecue is so fucking good. The brisket. He gave me a brick to take home. I ate it for 2 days this week. It's amazing.
So thank you. Thank you so much. They, for more than a year before you came, for the first time, I had already been making my own stuff, but just backyard, for my family and whatever. And I was keenly aware of the fact that like everybody that was telling me it was good hasn't had the kind of barbecue I'm trying to make.
Mm.
What I'm dying to know is my barbecue good because it's Northeast Ohio and good barbecue is very hard to find?
Mm.
Or am I making something that could hold a candle to the places that I find iconic and like, Jesus, dude, like I read Aaron Franklin's book
Mm.
front to back. Like I've consumed the knowledge these people try to share. That's what's so cool about barbecue and the people that start these businesses is it's not like the kind of business where people want to keep their secrets and everybody's competition and
Mm.
don't worry about how I got mine. It's such a craft and such a hard thing to do that none of these people are afraid to show you how they do it, give you all the tips, all the tricks, but then stand back and kind of cross their arms and be like, good luck.
Yeah.
Because it's still super hard. It's easy to mess up. And you were always like, I would always say to Kathy, like, I love the compliments everybody here gives and my family and friends, but like, I need Paul to tell me it's good. Because he's like in the mecca of barbecue on earth. So like, if it gets his approval, like I can feel like I'm actually onto something.
Straight up. Yeah. I would say it is just as good as Franklin or Terry Black's. And they're like, there's so many barbecue spots obviously there. And most of them are like, whatever. And some of even like the ones that you'll hear, like, you got to check this out. It's like, yeah, that's kind of dry and tough and like overrated, but the place is really cool, or, you know, it's just whatever. But your brisket is absolutely up there with them. Like, yeah.
That's uncomfortable praise, but thank you. There's a whole side of it that I can't even pretend to know yet. Cause it's like, I can knock one out, I can get one right. But I think part of what makes those guys like real artists is, especially like a Franklin, like it's a replicatable thing that he does on a massive scale every day. I think they do, he said something like 120 some briskets a day, every day.
Oh my God. That's insane. Yeah. It's just a machine pumping out perfect brisket. Yeah.
To dial in excellence like that is like, I'm in awe of it. And I want a cozy little shack where people can sit down at a picnic table if they want to, but if they want to just grab shit and go, I'll slice it right there in front of them. That kind of small thing.
Start it there. I guarantee it'll grow on its own. Like, there's nothing like that around here.
We'll see. We will see.
We will. I believe in you.
Thanks, buddy.
Alrighty. Well, I think we could wrap it up here. It's been excellent. I'm glad we got to touch on that and get you back on after your phone died. So,
yeah, I was like, we were so close to landing the plane the first time through. So yeah, there's a.
Now my earbuds are beeping in my ear. They're about to die. So this is perfect time. Leon, we're almost done, buddy.
I am so thankful to be on this, and I absolutely love this podcast, and I've been blown away by the guests you've been getting, and it's only going to get better. I can't wait to hear Kevin's. I'm sure you don't want to like spoil things going further, but how many future guests do you have? Like,
I have.
You don't have to say them, but
I have 4 after you now.
No, attaboy.
Yeah,
awesome.
I'll tell you when I get off. I'm excited. I got my first like non-metal person coming on because I want this podcast to be for any genre, anyone I can enjoy talking to that has the same passion we do. I'm not going to corner myself with just metal guys because there's plenty of metal podcasts who do that better than I will. I just like to talk to people in general and keep it open. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. And thank you very much for coming on and taking time out of your night. I know you're a busy man and a family man, but I've been excited for this one since I started it because there's not many people I've known longer on the planet than you. And we've been at this journey for a long time together, and I'm so happy we were able to do it again and that I get to live down the street from you again. So I love you, man. Thank you very much.
I love you too, man. It's been so great having you back. So I'll see you at practice tomorrow.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I'll see you tomorrow night. And you can catch us in Columbus if you're in the Ohio area. Donato's Pizza will be playing in the basement on March 8th with See You Next Tuesday, Samara, and Dance Like the Dead. There are no pre-sale tickets, so you got to get there and stand in line early. It's a small show, 200 capacity, I'm hearing now, that they move some stuff around. So make sure you get in line if you want to come, and we'll see you there. You can follow Nick on Instagram at Elmo_Huffman. And of course, our band is From a Second Story Window. Please give the podcast a like, rating, follow, all that good stuff. And we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, everybody.